Ladies and gents, boys and girls, happy Friday, July the 14th, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. I see Brendan, Travi, Ethan, Xavier, GA. What is going on here on this Friday? We got a lot to get into. Really excited to end the week on a high note. And our last show from the studio for a little bit as we embark on Nashville, Tennessee on Sunday. SEC Media Days getting underway next week in Nashville. Cannot wait. I see my guy Chase Floyd. He's got the popcorn. As always, good on you, my friend. We're also concluding and going to begin airing our 2023 opponent preview series. Had a great conversation early this morning about Furman football right after TDC. I'm actually jumping on with Tar Heel Illustrated to talk North Carolina and the season opener in Charlotte. Again, guys, the 2023 opponent preview series, it does begin on Sunday night. We'll start with UNC. Then Monday night, we'll do Furman. Tuesday night, we'll do Georgia. Wednesday night, of course, Mississippi State. No TDC on Thursday because that is a travel day for us coming back from Nashville. And then Friday, we'll return to our regularly scheduled programming, noon to 3 right here, and we will air our opponent preview for the Tennessee Volunteers. So going to be a lot of fun, going to be a really fun week. Of course, guys, TDC rolls on from Nashville next week. But of course, guys, the schedule is going to be a lot different with us being at SEC Media Days all day long. We'll go live. It's going to be pretty late. So it's going to be a late night TDC. I'm planning on Sunday night. We'll probably hit the live button about 7 o'clock Central, but that'll be 8 o'clock Eastern. And the plan is to have a 3-hour show because Mark Rogers is going to join us in our second hour. We'll have plenty to talk about on Sunday night to fill that first hour. And then, of course, I want to have a Q&A power hour. So we'll go live 7 to 10 Central Time, 8 to 11 Eastern Time on Sunday night. The rest of the week, guys, it's just really going to be, I'm going to take a look at the schedule and probably try to set some tentative start times, if you will, but there's a chance we could start later. So maybe I shouldn't even set a start time. And when we go live, we just go live, and I'll let you guys know on social media because, you know, there's some nights we might be able to get going at 8 p.m. Central Time. There's some nights it literally might not be until like 10 o'clock Central Time. So it's going to be a couple late ones, guys. It is what it is, but the content must roll on. Content bleeding out the eyeballs, and I cannot wait to talk with you guys after each and every single day and just detail the day that was at SEC Media Days, because I'll tell you guys this, as much as I'm going to Nashville as I don't even want to say the word reporter, that just feels weird, but as much as I'm going for content purposes, to make content, to talk to coaches, to talk to players, I'm really going to soak in and enjoy the experience. Like I'm really going to enjoy myself and take it all in. And it's going to be really cool, man. It's going to be really awesome. So yes, definitely GA to a great point he makes. More of a reason to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon, guys. So then you get notifications of when we go live. Because again, I'm not 110% sure exactly what time it's going to be. Because again, Monday, Wednesday night, they have receptions for the media, dinner receptions, if you will. Tuesday night, they're having like a concert downtown and having events and stuff like that. So I don't exactly know what time I'll get back to the Airbnb and hit the live button, but I can assure you we will go live. Again, guys, we got a packed show, though, today, of course, our third hour, our Q&A power hour. I want to hear from you, your questions, comments, calls, 843-790-3377. In our second hour, our good friend Jake Crane of Crane & Company joins the show in what is set up to be an electric conversation, because in case you guys missed it, I am picking the Auburn Tigers. We had an error, by the way, when I dropped my SEC team predictions. I messed up. I picked Vanderbilt to upset Auburn, but when I dropped Auburn's schedule, I had them beating Vandy. So I am picking Vandy to upset Auburn. So I've got Auburn not at 7-5, 3-5, but I got Auburn at 6-6, 2-6 in SEC play. So our good friend Jake Crane is going to have a lot to say about that, and specifically that Vanderbilt upset pick. Cannot wait to chat with Jake Crane ahead of SEC Media Days and get his thoughts on everything going into Media Days. The storylines also, by the way, Tennessee football getting hit hard with sanctions, no postseason ban, but they do lose a lot of scholarships. There's a hefty fine as well. Cannot wait to get Jake Crane's full thoughts on that and much more. And again, guys, in our first hour, we're talking special teams, man. Beamer ball. I had a dress for the occasion. We're talking Gamecocks special teams going into 2023 football season. And guys, we're going to cram everything into one day. Obviously, we've just got today. We're going to knock out special teams today. I know offense and defense took 2 days. We're going to knock this all out in one day. So I know we've done stuff like get to know this group. You know, here's what will define success. Here's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to do top storylines, why they'll be better, why they'll be worse, and my prediction for the Gamecocks special teams in the 2023 football season. So we're going to knock that out, lock in on those. Really, really excited to talk South Carolina, especially because honestly, guys, it feels wrong that I'm not spending 2 days on special teams. When you think about how much of a factor special teams has been and is going to continue to be for South Carolina under Shane Beamer and Pete Limbo, it almost feels wrong that I'm not giving special teams. It's just, we're going to do everything we can today. I think we'll be able to knock it all out, get a full preview in there, breakdown, if you will, what have you. So again, really excited for that. Guys, in case you missed it, the relaunch of tsus.store took place last night. Here's something really cool and exciting, by the way, because we had a website, thespursupshow.com, that just took you to a website, and it was a place that the podcast, articles could be posted. Here's the thing. You guys all know, while I still think there's value in written content, our content focuses on audio and video. I think that's a given, right? And that's the content that I like to make. That's the content that I like to consume. And while I do think there's still value in written content, I just felt like the website, you know what? We're kind of going away from the written content side completely and just focusing really, truly on the digital side, the video side, the audio side. So it just felt like the website, was, excuse me, guys. The website was just sort of sitting there, right? Doing nothing. And so I thought to myself, why not just make the SpursUpShow.com the store, your one-stop shop for everything TSUS, the important things, the things that matter. So now tsus.store is your place to go for the merch, but also the SpursUpShow.com is now going to take you to our online store. And by the way, if you type in rattlerforheisman.com or SpencerRattlerforheisman.com, you're going to enjoy what pops up. I'll just leave it at that. Anyways, guys, the TSUS store, excuse me. Geez, the relaunch happened last night. As we take a gulp here. The relaunch of tsus.store happened last night, guys. Really exciting stuff. Really excited and glad you guys can now see what we've been working on. Let me say this, because the first question I got, Chris, this all looks great. Where are the hats? Where's this product? Where's that product? Guys, we are going to be adding products as we go. Hats are actually happening right now. We are fulfilling hats. But what you're going to notice, we have decreased quantity, but we are vastly increasing quality across the board. And I'm talking everything from the merchandise itself to the fulfillment process, to shipping, to when it gets delivered, the experience you have, the packaging, what you get in the packaging, anything and everything you can think of. We have enhanced the entire fulfillment process. So really, really exciting stuff, guys. I highly suggest you go check that out. tsus.store is where you can find, I don't know what it is today, man. Where you can find all of that. I don't know what's going on today. Either way, I think we should be good now. TSUS.store, though. Please go check out the store if you have not. Anyways, guys, appreciate you all. 843-790-3377. We'll take your questions, comments, calls in our third hour. Jake Crane of Crane & Company joining us in the second hour. But in the meantime, guys, as we continue and conclude our season preview series. You know, some college football teams and college football programs out there, they don't put a whole lot of emphasis or focus on special teams. And as I've gone through and I'm doing these 2023 opponent previews, and when I did the SEC team previews, I brought up special teams every time. And it's funny to see the reaction of some of these folks because they're like, special teams? Like, why are you asking about special teams? Who cares about special teams? And I have to remind myself, not everybody has a Shane Beamer and a Pete Limbo to turn your special teams from just something that's there to into a weapon and a reason you win football games. So without further ado, guys, we're breaking down the Gamecocks special teams today as we conclude the season preview series, talking offense, defense, and, of course, special teams. We'll start with our top storylines for the Gamecocks special teams entering the 2023 football season. Kai Kroger, guys, returns as arguably the SEC's best punter. And you look at the numbers last year, 46.1 yards per punt. That was 5th in all of college football. But that's not all he can do. He was a weapon for South Carolina. Not just as a punter, not just pinning teams deep. We saw him in the Clemson game. I mean, you could argue Kai Kroger was as much a reason as anyone on the roster that South Carolina won that football game. No. We're talking in the fake game, the trickery game. This is a guy went 6 for 6 passing and 3 touchdowns on the season. I don't know if there's a punter out there. And I know we make the jokes, guys, well, I hope I never see the punter because then our offense is scoring touchdowns. We never have to punt. And that's all fine and dandy. If we scored 60 a game, I don't think anybody'd be complaining if Kai Kroger got very relaxed and comfortable on the bench. But the reality is this. You're going to punt in college football. It happens. As the great Lou Holtz once said, every possession is a successful possession if you end it with a kick. Think about that. Anyways, what Kai Kroger did for South Carolina last year, I think you could argue there is not a punter in college football that means more to his team than Kai Kroger does. When you think about the ability to pin a team deep and give your defense an opportunity to, hey, they were opportunistic last year, make some big plays. Well, it helps when that opponent's working from inside their own 10-yard line, 15-yard line, 20-yard line, if you will. We saw the impact he had in that Clemson game last year. I mean, Clemson was having to go the length of the field every single drive, and it just put the pressure on them offensively. And then in the fake game. And, guys, we'll get into this more a little bit later in the show, a little bit later in this conversation, but the way that special teams has impacted South Carolina football in the sense of catching teams by surprise, catching teams napping, stealing possessions, converting 4th downs, keeping drives alive. It's just been a huge – they've used it as a huge advantage the past 2 seasons. Beamer ball to the moon, Pete Limbo, the best special teams coach in college football. So – Kai Kroger's return. He's an excellent punter. I think he's on pace probably to be an all-SEC, if not an all-American punter this season. But he's a weapon, too, for South Carolina, as evidenced by 6 for 6, 3 touchdowns through the air. Another big storyline, guys. Your kicker returns in Mitch Jeter. And I would argue that Kai Kroger, Mitch Jeter, it's the best punter-kicker duo in all of college football. Mitch Jeter went a perfect 11 for 11 last season in field goals. And when you really think about that, when you think about the pressure that Mitch Jeter felt last season, replacing Parker White, your all-time points leader at South Carolina. I thought the coaching staff, by the way, did a really good job of not asking too much of Mitch Jeter, right? We see it all the time. We saw it in the previous regime, by the way, where for whatever reason, they put Parker White in situations 55-yard field goals, 56-yarder, like 50-plus yard field goals constantly. And it's like, it's great to have the leg, but the farther you get away, obviously, your make percentage decreases. And as we all know, being a kicker is like being a golfer, man. It's all mental. You have your swing of your leg, you have your swing in golf. It's all mental. And just simply missing a kick can throw you off. You can lose confidence. It can throw off your timing. And it gets in your head. So the coaching staff, I thought, did a great job of not asking too much of him in his first season taking over the place kicking duties. And again, guys, he was perfect. Literally 11 for 11. Can he stay perfect? Is it possible? I don't think it's likely because, I mean, this is sports. This is college football. I mean, the likelihood that you're eventually going to miss a kick, it happens. But it's undoubtedly true that South Carolina returns one of the best kickers, I think, in the SEC as well, as evidenced yet again by the numbers, by the stats, 11 for 11 in 2022. Another big storyline, guys. Xavier Legette returns as your kickoff returner. We're all excited what he's going to do with the wide receiver position. This is his breakout year. I feel like, guys, by the way, side note, and it's not a knock on Xavier Legette, but I feel like I've said it at least 2 times, probably 3 coming into a season, that Xavier Legette's going to be the breakout player. I don't know what it is. I just love picking Xavier Legette as the breakout guy. Maybe he makes me look smart this year. Either way, he's eyeing his best season yet as a kickoff returner. And you think about last year, the way that he changed the game in special teams with that return against Texas A&M. South Carolina, guys, is to a point where you've got to account for them in every facet of special teams. Kickoff return, punt block, kick block, punting. I mean, everything. Field goals, whatever. And Xavier Legette's a guy, he showed off the wheels and the speed against the Aggies. He showed the vision, the breakaway speed, the ability to break tackles, what have you. You know, I feel like it's a lot to ask to say, you know, if we don't have a kickoff return for a touchdown, it's a failure because it's a hard thing to do. But I think Xavier Legette, he's eyeing his best year as a Gamecock, both at receiver and kickoff returner. And I think he can be a lethal weapon back there yet again for South Carolina. Speaking of the return game, guys, another big storyline for the special teams is the departure of Josh Vann. Not only was he valuable at the wide receiver position for South Carolina, but was a pretty damn good punt returner as well. And I think, you know, after Brian Edwards, Josh Vann was the next guy in line. I think you could actually see South Carolina upgrade at this position. And it's obviously gotten much, much tougher in college football, in the return game as a whole, because these kickers are so much better. They've moved the ball up on kickoffs and on punts. I mean, these guys are so good. The hang times are so good, and it's really hard to really get anything going in regards to punt returns. But that's something you got to replace this year. Josh Vann, no longer on your football team. Who is that guy at the punt returner spot? Is it an Amarian Brown? Is it an Eddie Lewis? Is it the Carryon Joyner? Is it somebody else? Is it a freshman? Does somebody else step up? And you know why that's always a question mark, guys? Because we're so accustomed now to, special teams is a weapon. Special teams is, you know, something we're using to our advantage. For most teams, special teams is just, okay, just don't mess up. As long as special teams isn't a reason we lose the football game, we're fine with it. So when you're replacing your returner, the number one thing is ball security. That is the number one thing. Finding a guy that is secure with the football. I'll never forget, guys, and I think I've told this story before. My grandfather, every time there was a kick, a punt, if you will, he would say, kangaroo, kangaroo. Kangaroo, kangaroo. Cross his fingers. Kangaroo, kangaroo. What he meant by that is a punt returner putting that ball in a pouch like a kangaroo puts their infant, their youngin' in a pouch, right? Taking care of the football. I mean, I'll never forget, guys, being at the 2005 South Carolina UCF game, the image that has forever stayed in my mind referring to that, the kangaroo thing, is UCF punted. Jonathan Joseph on the other end receiving. And guys, I swear the ball hits right in his chest, pops out, UCF hauls it in and runs it in for a touchdown. And I looked at my grandfather like, you got to be kidding me. That game ended up being, 24-15, much closer than it should have been because of a play like that. So, finding a dependable punt returner, that is objective number one. Then you can worry about, your best athlete, who's going to be the best at breaking off a big return, etc. On that note, another big storyline for me, guys, Amarian Brown is so intriguing because he's such a speedster. And if you have the speed of an Amarian Brown, you can make big things happen. Heck, you can play at the next level, guys. Look at a guy like Damiere Byrd in the NFL, which he was a really good receiver for South Carolina. Don't get me wrong, but he wasn't the team's number one receiver at any given point. Never was the number one guy. But look at the NFL career he's had. And what it shows is you got speed. You can play this game for a very, very, very long time. Can Amarian Brown become more of a factor in special teams? That's my question. I just don't know how you keep a guy like that. And we saw him, by the way, in the Clemson game, returning punts after Josh Vann went down with an injury. I think Amarian Brown could be sort of that secret weapon in the punt return, and even the kickoff return game. Again, when you have a guy with that type of speed, it comes down to vision, things of that nature, ball security. But if he can do those things, he's got the speed to burn anybody in college football. Giving him a look, we'll see. We'll see. We trust Shane Beamer, Pete Limbo. They're going to put the best possible guy back there, no matter who it is. But Amarian Brown, I think that's a guy to watch for, man, using that speed and maybe making some big things happen on the special team side of things. My final storyline, guys, is this, and I alluded to this earlier in this segment. Does Beamer ball help South Carolina overachieve once again? You look at the previous two seasons. Special teams has undoubtedly been a part of South Carolina's success in the first 2 years of Shane Beamer. Special teams has undoubtedly been a part of the success and what Shane Beamer has done through 2 seasons in Columbia. And as I mentioned before, some teams, they look at special teams, they scoff. Why are we talking about special teams? Who cares? In Columbia, Beamer ball to the moon. They have used that and turned that into a weapon. When it comes to what Kai Kroger has done in the punting game and the fake game, 6 for 6, 3 touchdowns. What Mitch Jeter has done in the place kicking game, 11 for 11 last year on field goals. Kickoff returns, Xavier Legette sparking the big one against Texas A&M. Punt blocks, had a pair of those against Georgia State in last year's season opener. Field goal blocks. You name it. Special teams is a weapon at South Carolina. And when you're a team like South Carolina that's looking to overachieve for a third straight season, when you're a team like South Carolina that's looking to maybe pull an upset or two or give Georgia a scare or go up against and maybe beat some teams that might be top to bottom more talented than you, stealing the special teams facet of the game is such a game changer. We have literally seen it the first 2 years of the Shane Beamer era. Does Beamer ball once again help lift the Gamecocks to overachieving? Because it is undeniable that in his first 2 years, South Carolina would not have 15 wins through 2 seasons of Shane Beamer had special teams not done what they have done to this point. Kudos to Shane Beamer. Kudos to Pete Limbo for the job they've done through 2 seasons and evaluating this year and the schedule, maybe some of the shortcomings or deficiencies you have on offense and defense. Special teams, yet again, is an area that South Carolina can win. It's a facet of the game they can steal, and it can help lead the Gamecocks to overachieving once again. Guys, let's jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Friday, July the 14th. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, welcome back. Friday, July the 14th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in as we continue the conversation about Gamecocks special teams entering the 2023 football season. Really excited to continue chatting. Again, guys, do not forget our Q&A Power Hour upcoming in hour number 3. We got my good friend Jake Crane of Crane & Company jumping on the show at 1:15. And like I mentioned, in the meantime, we're breaking down Gamecocks specialists heading into the 2023 football season. A lot of chatter on social media right now about Tennessee football, the sanctions from the NCAA not getting a postseason ban. What do you think? Do you think they should have gotten one? And also, as I was scrolling Twitter during the break, J.C. Sherbert went on record and said he believes that Florida will be picked dead last in the East at SEC Media Days next week. Well, yours truly is not doing that, but I tell you, it would not shock me, would not stun me. But if that's the case, that's too far, guys. I mean, I like Clark Lee. I like Vandy. I like what they're doing. Florida still has talent. They've still got talent. I don't see that. Anyways, let's keep the conversation rolling, guys. And we've been talking offense, defense. Here's 5 reasons why they could be better. Here's 5 reasons why they could be worse. I'm going to give you reasons for the Gamecocks special teams, why they will be better and why they will be worse. Yes, I think there are reasons that special teams could take a step back. There aren't many, but for the sake of the conversation, we're going to entertain it. So let's start why the Gamecocks special teams could be better in this 2023 football season, which is almost hard to fathom because they've been so good. I was actually reading Phil Steele this morning, and he ranked the Gamecocks special teams number 1 in his special teams rating. So, I mean, there's nowhere to go, I guess, but down. But I do think there are things that could work out where South Carolina could be even better. First off, why they could be better. Kai Kroger and Mitch Jeter return is arguably the best kicker-punter duo in the SEC. Another year of experience under Pete Limbo. Another year of experience under Shane Beamer. I don't see those guys falling off anytime soon. I see Kai Kroger going to continue to do his thing, and Mitch Jeter, same for him as well. I think both of those guys are excellent players. Again, Kai Kroger, the fact he did not win the Ray Guy Award last year, make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. You can't make it make sense because it doesn't make sense. And Mitch Jeter, a perfect 11 for 11 a season ago. I think South Carolina is set when it comes to their punter and kicker this season. And again, I could see them being even better. Another year of training, another year of weightlifting, another year of practice. That helps these guys too. Just like offensive guys, defensive guys, that helps these guys too. Another reason why I could see them being better, Xavier Legette continuing to thrive as your kickoff returner. Again, another year for Legette as that dude returning kicks. I could see Xavier Legette popping another one off. Maybe even 2, maybe multiple. Another offseason to perfect the craft, another offseason to work at that spot. I could most certainly see Xavier Legette improving and making an even bigger impact than he had a season ago when it comes to kickoff returns. Also, guys, Amarian Brown, Eddie Lewis, and others, I think could bring new life to the punt return game. I really do. I think that, as good as Josh Vann was, I think just some new blood, some new athleticism. I would not say the punt return game was all that special a season ago. It wasn't bad by any means. It was not bad, but it wasn't something that really stood out to you necessarily. Speaking of the punt return game or the punt game, blocking punts and kicks as well. You figure that'll continue. I mean, Pete Limbo's constantly scheming, right? Shane Beamer's constantly scheming. I think that's something that could continue also. But Amarian Brown, I talked about him in the last segment. The athleticism, the speed. I think injecting that in a punt return game could be big. Eddie Lewis coming from Memphis, he was a lethal returner for those guys. I think he'll absolutely be a factor in that competition. So just bringing some new life into the punt return game, I think could pay off major dividends. And finally, guys, and I think this is the number one reason why South Carolina could be and most likely will be better in 2023. It's just another year of Shane Beamer, Pete Lembo, and the emphasis, the commitment to excellence on special teams. You know, we've talked to Jake Crane about this. A lot of special teams is a want-to thing. A lot of special teams is a commitment to doing it the right way, doing it at a level that others are not committed to doing it at. I mean, most teams out there, guys, like I mentioned, I've talked to people from other schools and done previews of the teams. You bring up special teams, they're like, why are we talking about this? Who cares? As long as special teams doesn't screw up, it's a non-factor. Let's talk offense, let's talk defense. But for South Carolina, special teams has had just as much weight as those are the two facets. And I think when you've got, I mean, guys, I would argue South Carolina has the best special teams coach in college football, Pete Lembo. And they got the best head coach special teams duo in college football. There's not, I said this last year, I probably said it in 2021, I'll say it yet again. I'm confident in saying there will not be a more well-coached special teams group than what South Carolina will field this season. There will not be a better special teams unit in college football because of Pete Lembo and Shane Beamer's commitment to excellence. South Carolina's shown they're willing. We're putting starters in there. Carolina's putting starters out on special teams. They are committed to winning special teams. And so I think when you have folks like Shane Beamer and Pete Lembo who are so committed to the craft, constantly evaluating and looking at new ways to improve, most of the time, guys, that leads to continued improved results. And I could see that yet again in 2023. Let's talk, again, for the sake of the conversation, let's talk why South Carolina could be worse. Could they potentially take a step back this year? It sounds like blasphemy when talking about Beamer ball, but I think there are a couple things that could happen. One thing is this, guys, the only way to go is down for Mitch Jeter. I mean, he went a perfect 11 for 11. Is he going to be 100% again? More than likely not. Probably at some point he's going to miss a kick. I don't want to speak it into existence, but dude, it's just sports. It's college football. Has there ever been a kicker that went 100% their entire career? I doubt it. That kicked a substantial amount of field goals, I'll say. Maybe Mitch Jeter's that guy. But the only way to go down for him, or the only way to go for him, is down. I think something else that's going to be really interesting to see, guys, how South Carolina combats this. Because I think what you're going to start seeing, teams are going to make stopping Beamer ball a priority. They're going to focus on it. If I'm an opposing coach, I'm looking at the matchup with South Carolina and saying, do not let them beat us in special teams. And more importantly, do not allow South Carolina to make a game-changing play in the special teams department, whether that's a blocked punt, that's a blocked field goal, that's a big return, that's a fake. We are eliminating that from the game. If South Carolina is going to beat us, they're going to have to take their best 22 against our best 22 and do it that way. How does South Carolina respond when teams inevitably make stopping Beamer ball a priority? And it's much easier said than done, by the way. Much easier said than done. Stopping Pete Lembo, Shane Beamer, Kai Kroger, Mitch Jeter, and what that entire group can do and has done to this point, it's much easier said than done. But I have to think, guys, North Carolina in the season opener, Georgia in the SEC opener, of course. But every team you play, Clemson at the end of the season, I mean, they're going to look at it and say, we cannot allow South Carolina to beat us in the special teams department. How does South Carolina respond? Are they able to make the necessary adjustments and continue to win that facet of the game? And guys, the only other thing that I could really think of why South Carolina special teams could take a step back, I guess Kai Kroger throws an incompletion. I mean, is that inevitable too? Is that ever going to happen? Does he finish his career completing 100% of the passes? I mean, you think to yourself at some point, one of these special teams trick plays is not going to work. You'd think to yourself at some point, right? Whether it be some trickeration with Tonka Hemingway, or it be a pass from Kai Kroger, or a swinging gate play, whatever it might be. You'd think to yourself that at some point, one of these trick plays is not going to work, right? So obviously, guys, again, for the sake of the conversation, I'm giving you reasons why there could be a quote-unquote step back for the special teams going into the year. But when you look at this group, there are reasons they'll be better. There are reasons they'll be worse. The reasons they'll be better, I know you and I both agree, far outweigh when it comes to Beamer ball in 2023. Guys, let's jump into another quick break. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Friday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, welcome back. Friday, July the 14th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. One thing I want to get into in the third hour. Our good friends Mark Ryan and Brad Crawford hashed it out yesterday. If you did not listen, an electric combo. And I'll say this. In a world in which we live, where specifically on Twitter, and this is a sad fact of Twitter, by the way, I feel like the only thing on Twitter that takes place or really gets shared and highlighted is negativity, things that piss people off, things that get people going. And most of the banter and the back and forth, one of the reasons I don't engage with it anymore, most of it, guys, is low-level name-calling, just insults. Like, it's not true banter. That's not an insult at anybody out there. I'm just saying that you guys see it every day. Like, a lot of it is just you cannot have banter where two sides disagree. They agree to disagree. They shake hands at the end. Let bygones be bygones. Keep it moving. You have your opinion. I have mine. Let's banter. We'll disagree. And it's, we're talking about sports. It's not life and death. There's no need to name call or make it personal. It's sports, right? So to hear those two guys do that was awesome. I loved hearing that Discord. I thought it was a really professional conversation by both of them. But something I want to talk about in the third hour, Mark Ryan just tweeted yet again saying that where Beamer has beaten Muschamp and where he has not, comparing Shane Beamer and Will Muschamp. And I recall, guys, when Will Muschamp was at South Carolina and the comparisons that were made between he and Steve Spurrier. And Will Muschamp bringing up, we've got the best 3-year record through our first seasons. You guys recall, right? He would just bring that up over and over and over and over again. That's how you knew the end was near. So we're going to talk about that more in the third hour. I think there's a lot to unpack and discuss, and I definitely want to give my takes on it. In the meantime, though, let's keep the convo rolling as we wrap it up. Talking Gamecocks special teams heading into the 2023 football season. My predictions for South Carolina special teams in year 3 of Shane Beamer and Pete Limbo. First things first, Kai Kroger. I think he's the real deal, guys. I think he's a dude. I think he will earn All-American honors for South Carolina this season. I think he'll continue to be a lethal weapon for the Gamecocks, both in punting and those fake situations. I don't see a scenario, guys, where South Carolina is going to stop doing what they've been doing. And I think Kai Kroger, like we mentioned earlier, 46.1 yards per punt a season ago, 5th in all of college football. Does the Ray Guy Award Committee or whoever decides those things, do they finally realize we've got our winner right here? And it's a damn shame that Kai Kroger has not won it to this point. It's a shame that I'd even have to lobby for him to win it. It really is. Because it just goes without saying what Kai Kroger has done, what he means to South Carolina. So I think he's going to be an All-American. I think when it's all said and done, Kai Kroger, there will be no debate. He is the best punter in all of college football. When it comes to Mitch Jeter, I do think, guys, Mitch Jeter will finally miss a field goal this season, but I think he's going to remain very solid for South Carolina in the place-kicking department. I mean, again, guys, it's just inevitable. And if you miss one kick or two kicks, it doesn't make you a bad kicker. It's just you're a human being. You're not a machine. I think Mitch Jeter is, who knows, maybe he is a machine. Maybe Kai Kroger is too, but I think Mitch Jeter is human. I think he misses a field goal this year. But I think he'll continue to be really good for South Carolina, and I think he could be the difference in winning or losing a couple of games this season. Xavier Legette, I think, will get another kickoff return for a touchdown at some point this year. I think it's going to happen yet again. There was a time where Carolina would go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years without a punt return or a kick return or a block punt. I mean, you guys might recall, right? There was a time where that just did not happen. It's gotten to a point now with Shane Beamer and Pete Limbo. I mean, it's a yearly occurrence. You can damn near expect it to be a yearly occurrence. So I think Xavier Legette will get another one. He showed great vision, speed. We see what I think that could all Legette gets another one. I don't know what game. Not going to try to predict what game it comes in, but I do think it gets another kickoff return for a touchdown at some point. Also, new athleticism, I do believe, will help South Carolina spark some big returns in the punt game. I think the punt game is enhanced this year. The punt return game, I should say. The punt return game, specifically. I think the athleticism of Amarian Brown, I saw somebody during the break had said that punt return that Amarian Brown had in the second half was one of the most underrated plays in that game. I think whether it's Brown, whether it's Eddie Lewis, as much as I liked Josh Vann last year, did a fine job. Nothing wrong with the job he did. I do think enhancing the athleticism at that position, I think is going to lead to some bigger results in the punt return game. Again, whether it's Amarian Brown, whether it's Eddie Lewis, whether it's somebody else, I think you're going to see the Gamecocks get more out of that this year. I think South Carolina blocks multiple punts and kicks this season. Again, it goes back to the return game. Like, we're at a point now, guys, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when South Carolina is going to block a punt. It's a matter of when they're going to block a kick. It's a matter of when they're going to make a game-changing play in special teams. I mean, until we see different, after year one, you could say, well, maybe it was just a nice feel-good story, and it's kind of like turnovers on defense. Like, I mean, is it really going to be there? Can you bank on special teams to win you games? Then year two happened, and it's like, I mean, at some point, you just got to give credit where it's due. At some point, you have to expect it. And that's where I'm at with South Carolina special teams going into this year. I do think they'll block a punt. I do think they'll block a kick. And with that being said, guys, my final prediction, and the big one here, I predict there's going to be a continued focus and emphasis on special teams. And I think it's going to help South Carolina yet again steal a win or two. Now, I got the Gamecocks at 7-5. 4-4 in SEC play. I'm sticking by that prediction. We've got wins at Missouri, a win against Kentucky late in the season, beating UNC in week one. I think there's some games in there, guys. South Carolina is going to make a special teams play or two or more that helps them steal a win. And as I mentioned earlier, you cannot overstate the value, the importance, what it's meant to South Carolina in the first 2 years of the Shane Beamer era. Beamer ball to the moon. There is no reason to doubt it. Going into year three, that special teams is going to be a huge factor of this team's success yet again. And for a team like South Carolina that still has some deficiencies, the roster isn't quite where some other teams they play is. Stealing special teams, winning that facet of the game, it's huge. I mean, it's absolutely huge. And it can be the difference between winning and losing. Guys, the stats are out there. It's like over 80% of the time when you block a punt in a game, when you block a kick, you win that football game. It goes without saying. The impact of Beamer ball. And that was a team last year that, I mean, it just had Beamer ball all over it. And you think about what Frank Beamer did at Virginia Tech, and Shane Beamer is really crafting this football team into his version of that. A team that, maybe South Carolina isn't as talented as everybody else. They're not as flashy as everybody else. They're not scoring 50 a game, but they play hard. They play the game the right way. They're fundamentally sound. They put themselves in positions to make big plays, whether that be offensively, defensively, or special teams. And you see that time and time again. And they make sure they're prepared to win that facet of the game that is special teams. Because, guys, you win 2 out of 3 facets, normally you're going to win the football game. And so South Carolina has been able to steal a couple wins over the last couple of years by stealing that special teams facet, and I expect more of the same this season. Guys, that being said, we'll jump into one more break. We'll get Jake Crane on the other side, and we'll have some conversation before that as well. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. We'll keep the convo rolling and get in our conversation with Jake Crane here on this Friday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Marshall Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, are back. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in here on this Friday, July the 14th, 2023. Really excited. In about 12 minutes or so, we got my good friend Jake Crane of Crane and Company upcoming, which we're going to have a very, very fun conversation. I was thinking about this, by the way, the break. I think I'm going to ask Jake his thoughts on the Will Muschamp Shane Beamer comparison. I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask him, and I think Jake Crane's response will be, if I had to guess, I think it'll be electric. That's just my take. Anyways, guys, let's see. Big Game Boomer put out the best pizza joint in every college town. No surprise, Village Idiot wins that. That's kind of a no-brainer, I feel like. Kind of a no-brainer. Tennessee fined $8 million by the NCAA, but no postseason ban. I will say this, guys. I will say this. Everybody's going to want a postseason ban from the Gamecock side of things. I just don't think it's fair to punish the current guys on the roster who had nothing to do with it. That's all. That's what sucks. I mean, when you do something like that, when you incorporate a postseason ban, you're punishing people that had nothing to do with the mishaps that the previous staff, Jeremy Pruitt, was doing. Lady Bree is back in the chat. What's going on, Lady Bree? Been a while. Lady Bree is back on TDC. Lady Bree, TDC has changed a lot since the last time that you've tuned in. Or I don't know when you may have tuned in, Lady Bree. I just haven't seen you comment in a long time. We're now doing a 3-hour live show, Lady Bree. So it's now noon to 3 instead of noon to 2. And in the first hour, I knock out the topics I want to discuss. Second hour, we have our guest. And then our third hour is our Q&A power hour. Yes, I get it, Lady Bree. I never know when you're watching. I understand. I understand that for sure. I'm just saying in case you didn't know. I don't know. Maybe you didn't know. Bruin Nation, what's going on, my guy? Appreciate you tuning in. Oh, yeah. This is, again, I want to save the time. We got about 10 minutes till Jake jumps on. I want to save the time for this whole Muschamp Beamer debate thing that has been sparked by Mark Ryan and the fan upstate over the last 24 hours or so. And I'm not going to, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. How about that? I'm not going to make any promises because I'll just say this, though. I recall the comparisons when Will Muschamp was the head coach. That's all I'm saying. So. Anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. Be sure to leave us your questions, your comments, your calls for our third hour, the Q&A power hour. So Jake Crane is waiting in the background. We'll get him on at 110, if that's okay with Jake. Get the thumbs up from Jake on 110. Okay, we're good with that. Normally 115. He's in here early. We'll get him in at 110. I do want to address something we were talking about on the other side or before we went to the break, and I see the comments, and this kind of goes back to the conversation that Mark Ryan, the fan upstate yesterday, their tweet, whatever, and talking about what responds, what plays on social media, what plays on Twitter, and what does not. And my guy John Rice says that Mark Cryan knows what he's doing. It's all for the clicks. Spur Daddy says everybody in sports media and podcasts today put up headlines for clicks. That's the name of the game. And I've mentioned this before, and maybe we can ask Jake about this as well, because he's in the same business we are. You put up podcasts, you put up tweets, whatever, you craft them carefully. But yes, everybody's in the, clicks business, the enticing you to get to the long form content, right? That's the tool that is social media. When I put out a minute long clip, I am enticing you to say, hey, if you like this clip, go listen to the full 20-minute, 30-minute, whatever long conversation. It's the same thing we do. We put out a clip of something Jake says. This is entertaining to you. Go listen to the long form. Here's the reality of it, though. The end consumer has to shoulder the responsibility, because you can bitch and moan about hot take content and controversial headlines. That's the content that plays, guys. And so we are in the where, hey, listen, downloads, views, what have you, those things drive revenue. And so as long as it is the controversial content that drives those things, that's the content you're going to get. If the content that moved the needle was, because I see it in my own day-to-day, I'll put out a post, Shane Beamer's the best, man. This player's awesome. We should be talking more about him. He's great. That might get 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever views. But if I put out a take out there saying, you know what? This guy's not good enough. This guy stinks. This coach, that was a bad decision. That was a bad call. The views are 10x. The proof's in the pudding. So, or even if it's a take that's not even all that controversial, but if you phrase it in a way that sparks conversation and sparks discussion, well, there you go. So I really try to live in the middle. I'm certainly not a hot take, clickbaity, whatever. But also the worst thing you can be in this business is boring. And I believe that people want to be challenged. If that weren't the case, people like Jake Crane, people like Colin Cowherd, people like Mark Ryan, shows like Get Up with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp, and they wouldn't exist. So at the end of the day, people can complain all they want, but guess what? I guarantee you that combo that Mark Ryan and Brad Crawford had, that'll be their most viewed, downloaded, clicked content of the month. I guarantee you. So you tell me. I think the end consumer, before they point fingers, they got to point the finger back at themselves. That's all I'm saying. All right, on that note, let's get him in here. Joins us every single Friday. Someone who I'm grateful to call a friend. Cannot wait to meet him. First time in person, which is a weird thing to say because we've had so many conversations, but we're going to be linking up at SEC Media Days. He does a fantastic job with Crane & Company. The man himself, Jake Crane, he joins the show. Jake, what's going on, my friend? Do you want to piggyback at all to what I was just saying? Because, again, You're a guy, you're just like me. This is why we get along. You run towards the banter, not away from it.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on some of the things I was just speaking on about content and sort of the landscape, if you will.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's why I laugh when anybody's like, oh, you're just doing this for clicks. It's like, that's like looking at a salesman and being like, yeah, you're just doing this for sales. Well, duh. Come on. What do you think? What do you think a baker goes and buys dough for? Or makes dough, to make bread. That's what it's about. But I'll say this, like with me, I don't look at something and say, what is the most outrageous view I can have on it? Like a Skip Bayless or something like that. In my opinion, Skip sucks. I'm sorry. It's just the truth. I know that type guy, right?
Well, to your point, not to cut you off, Jake, to your point, though, there are times where it's very obvious he is taking the extreme counterpoint just to have the conversation.
Exactly. Like with me, and I think you'll agree with this. I think it's the way you go about it. I'm always going to tell you what I really think. I think the problem is for people that don't generate a lot of views or whatever, is that they're just looking at what somebody else said and saying, oh, I agree with that. Yep. And that's going to be my take. I know that if I have 100 topics, there may be 50 of them that you agree with. There may be 30 of them that you would disagree with. And there may be 20 of them that you're like, wow, that's a very interesting or weird way to look at that. But they're all my takes. Right. It's like having a weird swing in baseball. Well, yeah, it may be different, but it works for me. And I'm always going to tell you what I truly think, and where that falls in your spectrum of whether you agree with it, whether you disagree with it. I know that when I throw enough pitches out there, I'm going to hit all the angles, and I want all the reactions. Colin Cowherd, when we signed with the Volume, we went out and had dinner with him out there in LA, gave me some great advice. He said, look, man, he said that the best thing I can tell you is this. Really, in reality, the perfect situation is where half your audience loves you and half of them hates you. That's the perfect situation. I don't want our audience to agree with everything I said. That'd be the most boring ass show ever. I don't want them to disagree with everything I say. I want them to go into it saying, I wonder what Jake thinks about this. And then I'm going to tell you what I really think. Now I'm going in there with kind of a bigger sword because I did this for a living for almost a decade, 6-year Division I level. So when I look at it, I know how the sausage is made. When I watch the game, I watch games differently than other people do because I've had to sit there and break down film and come up with game plans and realize, is this cover 2? Is this cover 1? Are they going to zone blitz here? What are they going to do on 3rd and 2? Are they going to run the power? Are they going to run the counter? Is it zone scheme? Is it gap scheme? That's only part of it. But if you start varying away from what you believe, that's how you get caught. I'm never going to argue something that I don't know, or that I'm just taking something from somebody else. And I'm sure you've had this problem. I have people in national media at high places that I'll see take exactly what I said and refurbish it on their show. And that's fine. Sometimes we may have the same view. Now, if you're articulating it exactly the same way I am, then that's plagiarism. But guess what? You can't live off plagiarization forever. You eventually got to be able to make your own stew. And at the end of the day, I'm just going to make my own stew. And if you like the way it tastes, great. If you don't, then not. But in a world where views and clicks equal money, it equals ads, it equals revenue, you don't want to sit here and be like, yeah, they need to run the ball good. Like that's you got to have some sort of flavor. But I'm obviously passionate about it. You're passionate about it. We're very informed. So I'll roll the dice out there and let the bad big dog eat whatever.
Yeah, Jake, I think we're living proof that, there's a reason that box score banter doesn't play well anymore. I mean, anybody can tell you, what the completion percentage is, or the yards, or the touchdowns, or run the ball, or what have you. But being able to be creative, have an opinion, be critical, look at things in a different way. And I think also, too, being able to create banter and maybe even sometimes controversy while being yourself and being genuine. And as they say in wrestling, a good friend of mine once told me this, Chris, controversy creates cash. And that's just the end of the day.
Well, look,
that's the deal.
Drake said it best at the beginning of Pound Cake. Only real music's going to last. All this other bullshit is here today and gone tomorrow. That's just the truth. And, again, I'm not biased, too. That's another great part about being in it. I grew up an Auburn fan. My dad was an All-American at Auburn. I hope Auburn wins every game. I'm not going to lie. We're all a fan of somebody. But I'm more critical of Auburn than anyone. Auburn hadn't sent me a check yet. And in this world, I'm worried about providing for my wife, our future family, being able to pay a mortgage. So that's what I'm worried about. And I'm gonna look and give you my honest take. If it's good for Auburn, if it's bad for Auburn, if it's good for South Carolina, if it's bad for South Carolina, I'm gonna tell you what I actually really think.
Jake, take Auburn in that sentence, replace it with South Carolina, and you've got yours truly. So
that's exactly right.
That's exactly how we roll. Anyway, speaking of controversy, I will get your take on this, and I want to be fair. Again, you go on Mark Ryan's show. Your buddies with Mark Ryan. You know Mark Ryan. You know the fact his show is literally called Offside. So they're going to say, and that's why they've had success. They will just, he states his opinion. He embraces it. I've had people ask me, is Mark Ryan a hot take artist? Click that. I'm like, this is just who he is, and he's just giving his take. I mean, I genuinely don't think Mark is waking up being like, again, what's the hottest take I can have today that's going to piss the most people off? So his honest take, and he had dialogue on his show yesterday, and Mark knows the way you word things, you phrase things on Twitter. People are not going to go listen to the podcast. They're going to see
what did Mark say, Chris? What did he say? I didn't see it. What did he say?
Okay, so let's go to the Fan Upstate's Twitter account, right? The conversation was about Shane Beamer and Will Muschamp. And Will Muschamp is a dirty word in Columbia. You know as well as I do, Jake. It is just something you don't say, somebody you don't talk about. So the conversation was this, because Shane Beamer – oh, we just lost. There you go. Okay. We lost you for a second. Can you hear me?
Sorry. My wife called me for some reason.
You're good. You're good. Same thing happened to Mark yesterday, by the way. I had to teach him how to cut his phone on Do Not Disturb. He had no idea. So,
oh, man, I need to do that. I was coming on.
Guy took a massive L on the live. Anyways. So Shane Beamer and Will Muschamp have the same amount of wins, exact same amount through 2 seasons, 15. They have the same records, right? So the comparisons between the two, which
we just got married. I don't know why she's freaking.
You're good. So anyways, comparisons between Beamer and Muschamp, they won the same amount of number of games through 2 seasons. And so this is a conversation that Mark likes to have. And on yesterday's show, they were having it, and they crafted this tweet.
While I'm listening.
No, you're good. They crafted this tweet. Shane Beamer has done a better job than most creating a positive culture at South Carolina, but in many aspects, he's the equal of Will Muschamp. Will he ultimately end up closer to Muschamp or ascend to the heights of Spurrier? So, as you can imagine, that tweet was not well received. Granted, it's got 151,000 views. So if we're playing that game, right, it got out there. The impressions are there. Your thoughts, is it blasphemy to compare those two guys? Because I'll take you back to a time, Jake. You know, it's so funny. I mean, one of the big jumping points for TSUS was, I mean, we had like 8,000 followers at the point, nothing major. 2019 UNC happens. I go on record, fire Will Muschamp, right? That video goes viral. And I was known as the fire Will Muschamp guy for like 2 years. But I remember a time when this fan base adored Will Muschamp. They loved Will Muschamp. And so, same record through 2 seasons. They got there in very different ways. Is it blasphemous to compare those two guys, or do you think there's actually substance to comparing them? I'll also say this. Steve Spurrier also had 15 wins through 2 years. So maybe that's more of a fair comparison. Just, you know what I'm saying? But he was entertaining the conversation. Do you see where he's coming from, or do you think it's blasphemous to even mention those two in the same sentence?
Well, I think that's really surface level thinking. I mean, look, I guess you're going to sit here and say by wins. You know, I think it's too early. Like you don't know. What did you expect Shane Beamer to do? Come in and go undefeated the first 2 years? Like that's like saying after Nick Saban's first year at Bama, when they lost the week in a row, well, he has the same record as Mike DeVos did in his first year. And look, I love Mark. Mark's a great guy. I enjoy going on his show.
Right.
I just feel like that's like dipping your toe in the water and taking it back out and then saying how great the lake was. I mean, you got to jump in and see it. I mean, you got to give the man time. You look at the way they ended last year. There's a lot more momentum, I think, right now in the South Carolina program. I don't know how, on one hand, you can say that South Carolina has a much better culture right now, but yet him and Will Muschamp are exactly the same. I think that's kind of contradictory. Now, nobody can tell the future, but I think the vibe, if you're associated with it and you've been paying attention, and you look at what Shane's doing in recruiting, and you kind of look at the way the team responds to him, you look at what they've done through the transfer portal, the way they finished last year, I just feel like that's a very shallow comparison. I feel like, again, that was made to stir controversy. I get it factually from a win standpoint. You can't argue it. But from a wholesome going into this year, the future of the program, I just think that's a very shallow look at it.
Not all wins are built equally, Jake.
No,
we all know
it's all circumstantial.
Right.
Like, again, the league's way different right now than it was 2 years ago.
Right.
Like it's different. I mean, look at what Georgia is right now. Look at what Florida is right now. I mean, you look at what Tennessee is right now. And I feel like, Muschamp inherited the program in a better spot a little bit than what Shane did. But just to look at that alone and say they're the same, that's it, case closed, story's over. That's that ain't it.
And some numbers to back up what you're saying, Jake. Our good friend Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports, mentioned this. Muschamp was 1-6 against ranked teams his first 2 seasons and was outscored by Clemson 90-17. Shane Beamer has 3 wins against top 25 and has beaten Clemson. in his
I
first
mean,
two
yeah. I
seasons.
mean,
So.
this one of those situations you just got to touch grass, man. I mean, look right now. Look right now, and then look back then in the same time. Now you tell me which one's better. Now that doesn't mean it's going to all be great. Doesn't mean it's all going to be fantastic and work out just perfectly. But right now, I would much rather take where South Carolina is with Shane Beamer heading into 2023 than where South Carolina was after year 2 with Will Muschamp.
Jake, let's move a different direction. We'll talk Tennessee football. They get hit with sanctions today. No postseason ban, but a slap on the wrist, dare I say, $8 million fine. And I think the scholarship stuff is a much bigger deal than the casual college football fan probably gives it credit for. Just talk about that. How do you feel the NCAA handled the Tennessee situation?
How many scholarships was it? Because I saw the money. I didn't see how many scholarships it was.
Let me look it up real quick. Let's see.
You never want to lose scholarships, but,
Yeah.
It's a lot different between losing 2 and losing 5.
Let's see. We'll pull it up here. 200, more than 200 individual infractions. My goodness. I mean, it was a mess. They cheated, and here we go. Okay. $8 million fine, 5 years probation, reduction of 28 scholarships over the terms of the probation, including at least 2 each year. Tennessee previously self-imposed 16 from the previous 2 seasons. Reduction of 36 official visits during that time. Reduction of 40 weeks of unofficial visits. A ban on recruiting communications totaling 28 weeks. Reductions in evaluations days by 120. Yeah, so a lot of reductions in recruiting. So, I mean, there's things hit in recruiting. Obviously not going to completely derail the program, but I guess that's what I'm more so asked. Like, what do you think this means for the future of Tennessee football, if anything?
Well, first off, the money thing. I think you got to balance out them getting fined $8 million with how much money they saved being able to fire Jeremy Pruitt with calls. Money, when it comes down to Tennessee's got money. They have a Navy that lines up before the game, right by the water, by the stadium. I'm not worried about money with Tennessee. When it comes to scholarships, so do the math on that. 28 scholarships over a 5-year probation term. I'm not a math magician, but that if you did it evenly, that's what, like 5.5 a year. That's that. When it's an arms race to build depth, that hurts. It's different if you're, and there's ways to like kind of cheat it to where you can, hey, maybe we have a kicker and a punter, to save a scholarship. Maybe we have a backup tight end, be the long snapper and have a kicker and a punter, save 2 scholarships, and you're losing 3.5 a year. But when you're trying to compete against Globo Gym over there in Athens, and what we know in the rest of the SEC, you don't know who's going to be up and who's down over the next 5 years. You want to have every bullet in the chamber. So the scholarship reduction does hurt. I'm not going to act like it doesn't. You can mitigate it a little bit. But at the end of the day, Tennessee did fire their coach, right? There has been repercussions. And let's be honest, with the NCAA, who's scared of the NCAA anymore? Like, part of me wants to tell Tennessee to do what Penny Hardaway did. Just like, no, we're not going to do it. Here, we'll give you $8 million, but we're going to keep the scholarship. So, yeah, I mean, that number, that's a pretty high number. We've seen what that's done to programs. You look at what it did to USC. You look at what it did to Alabama. Now, that was on a little bit of a different scale because they were dealing with probation. USC was more on the scholarship side. But that's going to make it harder for what Heupel and them want to do. And when you run a system offensively that's predicated on wearing the other team down, and you go 3 and out a couple times in a row, if you don't have enough scholarships on defense to be able to throw guys out there, it could create problems.
Jake, I've got the Auburn Tigers going 6-6, 2-6 in SEC play this year, with one of those losses being at Vanderbilt. Tell me why I'm an idiot.
Well, no, I mean 6-6. I think
losses here. I'll give you the losses too. We'll post this graphic later today. By the way, I messed it up this morning, so we're getting it out after the show. Actually, losses to Georgia, at LSU, Ole Miss, at Vandy, at Arkansas, and Alabama.
I mean, outside of Vandy, I don't think that's crazy. I think do we get Ole Miss at home this year?
Ole Miss is a home game. That was one that I've actually got Ole Miss at 6-6 as well, believe it or not.
Yeah, look, I don't think Auburn going 6-6 is crazy. I think it's more around 7-5. I think the ceiling would be 9-3. I think it's going to balance out somewhere between 7-5 and 8-4, just because what they've done in the transfer portal on the offensive line. I think it's been big. Why did they lose to Vandy though, Chris?
Listen, man. Clark Lee, you heard that name, Clark Lee?
Yeah,
he's doing some big things in Nashville. Hey,
like
Swan, one of the most underrated quarterbacks, I think, in the league. College football is a weird game, man. I think Vandy's going to get somebody. I think they're going to get somebody. I think it's Auburn. I do. I think Auburn, a sleepy noon game in Nashville. Nobody's really there. Maybe looking ahead to the road trip to Arkansas. Listen, admittedly, when I did the SEC picks, you got to pick some chaos, Jake. You got to.
That's what I think you did.
It's not going to go. It's not going to go chalk. It's not going to go chalk.
Around.
So admittedly, does Vandy have a top to bottom better roster than Auburn? No. But did they have a better roster than Kentucky last year? Did they have a better roster than Florida? Better than Kentucky?
No. I thought you were asking, do they have one like this year? I didn't realize you were referencing last year. No, look, you can sneak up and beat teams, but understand the word's out on Vandy now. Like last year, Clark Lee could sneak up on people. And I know it's Vandy, but after beating Florida and doing what they did in the SEC, they're not hiding from anybody anymore. And you've got a team in Hugh Freeze in year one that knows they can't afford to have a down game against anybody. The roster's much improved. I'll give him that. I think what he's done through the transfer portal and bringing in guys in important spots is going to help. But I don't think Vandy's sneaking up on anybody. I do think they get somebody. I love them minus 18.5 against Hawaii. Week one. I think that's going to be the ass beating of a lifetime. But I don't think so, man. I think Auburn's just better than they are up front. I do question the pass rush. I love the Swan kid. I think he's got a bright future. I'm glad he stuck around for Clark Lee. But it's just up front. I don't think Vandy has the cats to be able to go against an Auburn team that's going to need that win. That by your prognostication, and by most people's, and I agree with it, it's going to be fighting for bowl eligibility. I don't think Vandy's sneaking up on anybody, and I don't think anybody's taking them lightly outside of, maybe Georgia or somebody like that, who just, at the end of the day, it's science. But no, I don't know, man. I almost felt like this was because I said South Carolina, was going to go 5-7 last year. It felt a little personal.
I mean, and here, I'll say this, Jake, all your points are valid. And what I was not going to do today in this conversation is sit here and list off 100 football reasons why Vandy is going to beat Auburn. I mean, I'll just straight up tell you, man, when I was sitting there, I sit down with the full helmet schedule from FBS Schedules. By the way you're a college football sicko is like when I see a helmet schedule on FBS Schedules, it
gets me
it brings joy to me. It really does. It makes
Christmas.
me happy, warm and fuzzy. Yeah. So I sit down with the full helmet schedule and I go through and I go off gut and I'm like, this game, whatever. So admittedly, I've got Mississippi State beating LSU, Jake. How do you think their fans are going to be? But I've got them going 11-1.
I mean, Mississippi State's done that. I mean, I've watched Mississippi State do that
right.
2 out of the last 3 years. That one, I think Will Rogers is one of the most underrated players in college football. But here's what happened, Chris. Put that out. I said, hey, I'm coming on Spurs Up Show. I'm sure we're going to talk about Chris's prediction of Vandy beating Auburn. And then all of a sudden, I got tons of respect for South Carolina. I loved playing there when we went there. It's an incredible atmosphere. Columbia's a beautiful city. I think Shane is the right guy, and I like South Carolina. I'm root for him against Clemson. But I'm sitting here and having South Carolina fans talk about, Auburn's tied with Vandy with their overall record. Which, I mean, look at the last 50 years, dog. I mean, but I'm not going to sit here and I said, all right, well, South Carolina's tied with Vandy for SEC championships. And so now I'm in this fist fight with random South Carolina people on Twitter, and it just snowballed into chaos. But look, anything can happen in college football, right? Especially in college sports. We see crazy stuff happen in the NFL, but it's tighter in the NFL from the top to the bottom. But no, man, I don't know. I hope not. Now, would I be just floored if that happened or super shocked? No, but I don't see that one. I don't see that one.
Well, here's what I'm hoping, Jake. I'm hoping that South Carolina isn't the team that Vandy sneaks up on, because you might recall the last time at Willie B, South Carolina should have lost. And last year, people forget, that was only an 11-point game. And I just feel like, Jake, anytime you've beaten somebody 14 times in a row, like it's like, when's it coming? Like, is this the year, right? When does it happen? So.
And the scariest thing about Vandy is they got nothing to lose.
Right.
Like, that's the thing. What people in Nashville, they're not, oh man, Vandy's 4-7. Damn. I hate my life. Yeah. There may be like 4. It's like on Arrested Development. When Tobias Funke is talking about being scared, he's a never nude. He won't get naked in the shower. He's like, there's dozens of us. Dozens. But that's what scares you, because Vanderbilt's got nothing to lose. We got everything to lose. You can't lose to Vandy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this isn't baseball. This isn't basketball. This isn't, Gymnastics, I don't know if Vandy's got a gymnastics team. But at the end of the day, they got nothing to lose, man. That's scary. It's like the Bourbon Bowl. You can't hold anything back.
Jake, which of my predictions is a hotter take? Auburn will lose to Vanderbilt or Alabama will go 9-3?
Nah, I think Auburn losing to Vanderbilt, man. I'm telling you right now, I think there's a decent chance, especially if Texas goes in there week 2 and wins, that Alabama ends up 9-3. Alabama is shaky's not the term. I talked about vulnerability. I talked about them. I'm not used to them losing symbiotic positions at the same time, because Nick Saban's the best roster management guy, one of the best that there's ever been. That's one of the reasons why it works. Because when's the last time Alabama replaced a quarterback and a left tackle in the same year? Like, it's stuff like that. Now, we know Alabama's personnel. They recruit at one of the highest levels ever of all time. We know they're good players, but losing a quarterback and a left tackle in the same year, you don't see that a lot of them.
And I look at it, Jake. It's funny. I first time ever going to SEC media days. It might be my last, because Nick Saban might get my credentials revoked if he ever catches wind of that 9-3 prediction. I don't know. I'm bringing the rat poison to Nashville. I'm bringing the rat poison to Nashville. That's for sure. Hey, speaking of SEC media days, as we sit just a couple of days away, and Jake obviously cannot wait to meet you and the boys and have a good time in Nashville. You mentioned Georgia and Kirby Smart. Kirby's going to want to talk about all things football on field, but as well as I do, that is going to be the furthest thing from the conversation. The entire media is going to want to poke and prod and bring up other culture issues at Georgia. What are you expecting from Kirby? How do you expect him to handle that at SEC Media Days?
Well, like he's going to plead the fifth. I mean, he's going to say, I'm not here to talk about it. I plead the fifth too. But, this is the culture thing at Georgia. Okay, if their culture was so bad, how are they winning so damn much? You do realize that, culture in the locker room and on the practice field and during the games is different than what you do when you leave, right? Some of the guys that have gotten in trouble are out of the program. I don't hold USC accountable for O.J. Simpson. You know what I'm saying? Now, some of them are on there, and I get that. A lot of people have problems. Georgia's had most in the next, but their culture's pretty good. Their leadership's pretty good. Now, you've had guys that have made mistakes. I get that. But especially with the university sending that letter to the AJC and it's starting to get into legal limbo, Kirby's not going to say anything. They'll ask him about it. They'll ask other coaches about it. But if we're going to talk about just football culture, about my team going out and being prepared and better than your team, it's not just about bringing in great players. It's bringing in great players that can be leaders. Now, sometimes they speed, right? You look at Texas A&M. Texas A&M got a culture problem. Yeah, they've had one in the locker room because they can't win on the coaching staff. But I'm watching Georgia go out here and beat people like they stole something from them. So when it comes to culture, I think sometimes people really don't understand that it's a lot different in the locker room and on the practice field and when the team's together than it is when some guy's driving home.
Jake, sticking with SEC Media Days, before we get into specifically South Carolina, top storylines, things you're most excited to find out, coaches to hear from, players to hear from. What stands out to you as we approach SEC Media Days?
One of the big storylines I think is how wide open the SEC West is this year. You look what Alabama's having to replace. LSU won it last year, didn't dominate it, but won it. You either win it or you don't. I think they're going to be the favorite coming out of media days with Jaden returning and that young offensive line getting better. And I love Malik Neighbors out wide. I think he is such a good player. He ended up being their security blanket on third down when Kayshon Boutte went all Antonio Brown on us. But I think that's one of the big storylines. I think another one is between Tennessee and South Carolina. They went about it different ways. South Carolina really came on at the end of the year. Tennessee had one of their best years in a while. They upgraded, right? They moved from a duplex into a nice 4-bedroom in the suburbs, good neighborhood, good schools. Now, who's going to the mansion, right? Who can prove that it wasn't just 1 year of having success? Who wants to say, oh, man, now I got in the state with a pool and a gate? Who's going to take that next step? Is it going to be South Carolina or is it going to be Tennessee? And then I think you look at, obviously, the quarterback situation in the league right now. Kind of the opposite of what we're seeing in the Pac-12. Not a lot of returning guys, and some of them we're not hearing a ton about. I hear a lot about, hey, Alabama's going to have a new guy, Carson Beck, new First time being the guy. Joe Milton, big question mark at Tennessee. Which Spencer Rattler are we going to see? We're going to see early in the year Spencer Rattler. We're going to see late in the year Spencer Rattler. But nobody's talking about KJ Jefferson. Like nobody with Dan Enos now as the OC, that how much that offense is going to change. Nobody's talking about Will Rogers, right? Nobody's talking about all 11 of the starting quarterbacks that Ole Miss has. So I think those are three storylines to look at. And then also Florida and Billy Napier. You know, I had a monologue led the show with a couple days ago. Florida needs to be patient with them. I don't think going back to just bringing in great players. Yeah, you got to bring in great players. My goldfish will tell you that. But you got to bring in the right type of great player, especially when you have to build it from the ground up. Dan Mullen didn't go off to the NFL because it was so great at Florida. He didn't get scooped up by somebody else because everything was going so great at Florida. They didn't have a ton of depth. They had some good players on the surface, but not a ton of depth. And the culture, speaking of culture, was awful. And you look at their 2023 schedule, brutal. 2024 schedule, it's like getting blindfolded and beat like a piñata. And everybody talks about Anthony Richardson. No, you had the number 4 draft pick. Anthony Richardson was a work in progress. They drafted Anthony Richardson off potential. Now, you shouldn't have lost to Vanderbilt. I agree with that. But you beat Utah. There were some highlights there. So how patient, and I think Scott Strickland will be, how patient is Florida going to be with Billy Napier? Because I remember when they wanted to fire Dabo in Clemson, and then all of a sudden, woo, you know, Dabo, he's the prodigal son now because you were patient. Patience aren't just for doctors. And I know fans, they're bloodthirsty. Florida fans are looking at Georgia, and they want Hulk hands. They're sick of getting the rawhide wallet. They look at what Tennessee did. They look at South Carolina on the come up. Hell, Vandy's now got some expectations. Not a lot, but some. So I get it. Fans are always going to be bloodthirsty. That's why fans short for fanatical. But I'm very interested to see how Billy does in year 2.
Jake, I've been asking different people about SEC Media Days all week, and I'm really surprised that Hugh Freeze taking the podium is not more of a storyline. Nobody has mentioned that. Why do you think that
nobody
is?
Talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody's talking about it.
I am personally intrigued to hear from Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, here's what Hugh's going to do. First off, and it's kind of like Oklahoma a little bit this year. Auburn doesn't get to be the underdog a lot. Like we don't get to play that role a lot or being sneaky. And, you know, we've seen what some Auburn coaches have done in their first year. I mean, look at Gus Malzahn, took the team to the national championship game. You know, you look at what Chiswick was able to do. I think Hugh wants to go in there, hey, listen, this isn't about me. This is about us building. You're going to hear the word family a lot. You know, he's going to be very humble. They're going to ask him about second chance and how does it feel to be here at SEC Media Days now? You're born again, whatever. And he'll answer that. He'll, you know, talk about his faith. He'll talk about, you know, how thankful he is and how much he loves Auburn. But you don't want to give any team bulletin board material. He wants Auburn just to slide under the radar. Hey, nobody's expecting that much. I'm not okay and you're not okay, but that's okay. And that's how you sneak up on people and bite them. So I don't expect Hugh to come out and say anything. The question, Jeff, I think Hugh's going to be the boring guy. I think that's what he wants to be. Because, again, and there's a common misconception, not to be too long-winded, with bulletin board material. Bulletin board material, when you give another team that, has nothing to do with what happens during the game. Because after the first snap, all that other stuff doesn't matter. You're playing the game. It's the preparation. Teams prepare harder when there's bulletin board material. Teams are more focused to play you. It's about prep. That's what bulletin board material does, and I don't think you're going to get any from Hugh Freeze.
Do you think he'll be asked about Yahtzee and the Yahtzee tweets if he knows how to actually play Yahtzee?
Probably. Hell, I don't know how to play Yahtzee.
I don't either.
We were Candyland in trouble when I was growing up.
Shoots and ladders. Big shoots and ladders.
Yeah, that's exactly right, man. That's a Connect Four. Congrats, I win. But yeah, they'll probably ask him something. There's a lot of crazy questions. I'm just wondering what Brian Kelly's going to say. That's what I want. That's who him or Drinkwitz. One of them's going to say something. What is Brian Kelly going to say about Bama? That's what I'm waiting on.
So moving this conversation, Jake, to the South Carolina specific side of things, when you look at Shane Beamer, obviously he's bringing along with him Spencer Rattler, which very excited to hear from him. Tonka Hemingway on the defensive side, Kai Kroger, which I think is awesome because it continues to reinforce the Beamer ball brand, if you will, and what they're doing with special teams. I know it's talking season. I know you have to take everything they say with a grain of salt because nobody's going to step up to the podium and say, yeah, we're probably not going to be very good this year. Nobody's going to do that. But is there anything you would like to hear from Shane Beamer, Spencer Rattler, the group he's bringing? Anything you'd like to learn? Just anything in particular that you're looking forward to potentially hearing from Shane Beamer and company?
I think Shane just needs to be Shane. I mean, he's so good in front of a microphone. Because I think Shane's part of that new wave that, obviously they embrace social media. They understand comedy's important, having personality. That's kind of that younger coach wave that we're seeing move in because, again, it changed. Human beings evolve as we go on, and so does society. But I think Shane is one of the few coaches that actually really says, what he's feeling to a certain extent. Now, he's not going to go to any extremes. He's not going to say anything crazy. But I think there's a lot of genuineness, if that's a word, to Shane Beamer. And I think that really shines through. I think that helps him in recruiting. I think it helps him build trust with not only the players on his roster, but the fans and the players that he wants on his roster in recruiting. As far as Spencer Rattler, I'd like to know, preparation-wise, is there anything going into this year that not that you took from the end of last year because that's in season, but maybe that's different than the way you went into last year, that maybe you've changed a little bit? Like is there anything that you've tweaked? Is there a way you're going about things? Are there certain things that you're focusing on going into this season that you think is going to be more, potentially valuable to you earlier in the year? Obviously, he's going to be more comfortable, playing against the teams he's going to play against. Yeah, it's the new OC. But you have plenty of time to get used to the offense. A lot of it's just terminology. You may have some structural changes. You will. Schematically, it will be a little bit different. But kind of how he's changing his preparation process. And then, first off, Tonka Hemingway is such a great name. You got to be good, right? I say this in baseball all the time. If you name your kid like a cool name, Chipper Jones was always going to be good.
Yeah.
Like he's always going to be good. Like Tonka Hemingway, I just believe, man. I hear that name, I believe. Ellie De La Cruz, yeah, give me that guy. I could be blindfolded and never have seen him before and be like, yeah, I'll take him.
Jake, last thing before I get you out of here. Alabama's been picked to win the SEC at SEC Media Days in 7 straight seasons. The last team to be picked to win the conference other than Bama was Auburn in 2015. And that season, Bama was still picked to win the SEC West. Auburn was picked to win the SEC. Does the media pick LSU to win the SEC West this season?
Yeah, they're going to pick LSU in Georgia, which is exactly what Nick Saban wants. It's funny you said that you're going to bring the rat poison up, saying Alabama's going to go 9-3. Hell, you and Saban may be best friends for the end of it. Yeah, they'll pick LSU. And look, I get it. I totally get it. Now, we know the schedule. Nobody has an easy schedule. I think you have light schedules and you have heavy schedules, but nobody has an easy schedule. Carson Beck, I think, is going to be fine. I tell you what, and I'm not saying this, because I'm an Auburn fan. His first road game is in Jordan-Hare, and Georgia's better than Auburn. Nobody's questioning that. That's going to be a big test. That's going to be a big test for him. Not that he's going to have to do too much, but it's just it's going to be a lot to ask. So I think you're going to get LSU's slight favorite in the West because of some questionable position groupings at Alabama going into this year. A lot of unknowns. Not there's not talent, but a lot of unknowns. And then Georgia, mixture of their schedule with what they are up front, I think that's what you're going to get.
Jake Crane of Crane & Company does a fantastic job. Jake, keep up the good work. Cannot wait to link up with you at SEC Media Days, my friend. Going to be one hell of a time.
You too, man. I'm really excited and always fun to come up here and chop it up with you.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Great
See
stuff.
ya.
Jake Crane of Crane & Company. What a legend, man. Appreciate Jake truly, and it's going to be a fun week next week in Nashville. Guys, we'll jump into a break, but on the other side, our Q&A Power Hour gets underway. I want to hear from you, your questions, your comments, your calls, and more on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Friday, July the 14th, 2023, as we enter our Q&A Power Hour. I want to hear from each and every single one of you. 843-790-3377. That is 843-790-3377. Luke RJ says in the Big Cock Club Discord, Vandy against Auburn will be like the Bourbon Bowl. They have nothing to lose. Jake Crane's analogies are hilarious. He was a 90s kid for sure. Board games, trouble, and sorry, LOL. I like how he also said his goldfish could tell you that. Yeah, Jake's awesome, man. Again, I cannot wait to meet Jake Crane in person in Nashville. Going to be a lot of fun, man. SEC Media Days is going to be a blast. And guys, in case you missed it, of course, the content returning for SEC Media Days, the Behind the Beak mini vlog series. I will be documenting each and every single day at SEC Media Days. Again, we're heading to Nashville on Sunday. Got to be checking in on Sunday, getting settled. And then, of course, it begins Monday morning with Greg Sankey speaking at 11:30 Central Time. So going to be a lot of fun in case you missed it, guys. TDC will air live at night, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thursday's a travel day, and then Friday, we are right back here. Going to be a fun week for sure. Guys, again, the phone lines are open, 843-790-3377. Our phone lines rang off the hook yesterday, by the way. Phone lines rang off the hook. I appreciate you all doing that. Eric Reese says, enjoy Media Days, my guy. Reese, you're the man. Appreciate you. Hey, the new store is up. I got a code I'll be sending your way shortly, my guy. Appreciate all your hard work. My guy Lance says, tomorrow's my birthday, and I feel for the lattes I'm going to sacrifice. Lance, no latte will be safe tomorrow on your birthday. That's for sure. Todd Smith, tuning in from sunny Arizona. How about that? Where in Arizona are you, Todd Smith? Jeff Gullich's countdown to the simulation games. You know what's funny, Jeff? A sound that's been stuck in my head lately is the dude, the band homies, shout out the band homies, the band sounds on NCAA football. Nothing better, dude. Lynn Turner said earlier in the show, we use starters on special teams. We put a premium on special teams play. Not every team does that as much as we do. Lynn, that's a great point. That is a great point and a major reason why South Carolina has had big-time success in special teams. By the way, I want to shout out Football Frank, who joined the Big Cock Club yesterday and is now officially in the Big Cock Club Discord. You can join today, patreon.com/Big Cock Club, or click the link in our bio and click that Big Cock Club link to join today and get access. Ton of fun. Glad to have Football Frank be a part of it. Todd Smith says, I wouldn't be surprised if Nicholas Harbor play a part in the return game this year. You could see it. I mean, listen, I could very well see it. I could very well see Nicholas Harbor being a factor in that role this season. Ethan says speed and special teams is going to define our wins and losses this year. Creativity on all sides will continue, and Beamer knows how to do it. Indeed, listen, Beamer ball is yet again going to be a big part of what South Carolina does. Spur Daddy says Beamer ball is the real deal. Special teams makes this team go just like his dad did at Virginia Tech. I agree with you, man. I agree. Spur Daddy says Limbo isn't only an awesome special teams coach, but an awesome recruiter to boot. Spur Daddy, I can see Harbor returning kicks. I sit back with my popcorn and watch if that kid is back there fielding kicks. Ethan says if we win 9 games or more, Pete Limbo wins assistant coach of the year. If Carolina wins 9 games or more, Shane Beamer, I think, should be up for Coach of the Year. Truly. I really do believe that. Luke RJ says you can't stop Beamer ball in special teams and turnovers. That's what it feels like, man. That's what it feels like. It was Spider-Man 3001 that said, Amarian Brown's punt return against Clemson, most underrated play of the game. It gave us momentum to start the second half. It most certainly did, man. It was a very underrated play. I do agree. Let's see. Spur Daddy says Beamer's building this thing in the mold of what his dad did at Virginia Tech, just with better recruits. People can say what they want to, but this guy is for the duration, and it's Beamer ball to the moon, baby. Indeed. Indeed, man. I'm excited. I mean, listen, there's no reason why you should not be excited going into this season. Absolutely none. There's no reason why you shouldn't be excited. Ethan said this, it's a business, fellas, and that's going to happen. And I think he's talking about the hot takes, the headlines, whatever. That's going to happen. To be lucrative, you have to put your team bias aside. He also mentioned y'all have to realize that Chris is doing this for his livelihood, not his hobby. There'll be business involved in his guests, content, merchandise, etc. I mean, Ethan, listen, you make a point for sure. I mean, I've said this many times, and I'll say it again. One of the reasons that TSUS has succeeded to the level that we have, the reason that we will continue to succeed, you know, to do this successfully, you have to be able to think of things from not just the fan perspective, not even just the content creator perspective, but from the entrepreneurial perspective. You have to. You will not have success doing it if you cannot view it from that lens. A business that generates no revenue is a hobby. It's not a business. And one of my goals in starting this, I mean, I wanted to be an entrepreneur before I knew I wanted to be even a South Carolina content creator. I mean, actually, I'll go back on that because when I was a kid in middle school, high school, like I knew I loved covering sports. So I'll go back on that. I knew that I wanted to be in sports, whether it was covering sports, it was, you know, something to do with sports. So I knew that first, but it was around the same time. Once I stopped playing baseball in college and my mindset shifted from sports to business and entrepreneurship and viewing others who had done that successfully. And so it was this perfect marriage to where it was like, I hated my 9-to-5. I was not fulfilled. I was not happy. I was not the best version of myself because of it. So it was this yearning to break that mold and the wanting to and the willingness to chase and pursue and do the things necessary, required in entrepreneurship. It also, and I'm so grateful for this, it lined up with something that I'm so passionate about, which is sports, the Gamecocks, and creating content, creating merchandise as well. It all lined up together. But you have to have both aspects for sure, Ethan. And what I'm really fortunate for in my journey and the way that I'm wired as a human being, I'm not someone, and I never have been, I'm not someone that is blinded by my fandom. It's just like Jake Crane just said, guys. I mean, we all pull for somebody. Even those in the national media covering the SEC that have, quote-unquote, no bias, everybody likes somebody. It's hard to be a fan of college football without having a team. I mean, it just is, right? But even I'll say this, as I progress and grow and evolve as an entrepreneur, as a content creator, I'll always be a Gamecock. But I find it on a day in, day out basis easier and easier to become more objective. Honestly, I do. And I'm grateful that I'm wired that way. And again, I've talked about it before. It goes back to my grandfather. He was no nonsense. I mean, he loved the Gamecocks, but his whole life wasn't determined by being a Gamecock fan. Now, again, he loved sports. I mean, this is a man that would listen to sports talk every night, practically 6 to 8. He would listen to that every night, would read the newspaper, would watch all the games. But I still look at my grandfather as he wasn't defined by being a Gamecock. He was a husband, he was a father, he was a golfer, he was an entrepreneur, he was a thinker, he was a doer, right? I mean, he did many things. And so when we would talk about South Carolina football, we would have very candid conversations. My grandfather did not preach pro-USC propaganda for the sake of it. He didn't try to convince me that, son, now make sure you never speak one critical word, one ill word on South Carolina. He never instilled that in me. Thank goodness. Because at the end of the day, guys, I mean, it goes without saying that's not what plays. I could not do this full time for a living if I were not willing to be critical. If I were not willing to at times be controversial. And so I've embraced from the jump the way I approach things, the way I do things. It's not for everyone. It's not. And that is totally fine. But for the people out there that label me and label TSUS as he's toxic, he's negative, he just creates controversy, that's not true. All that says to me is that you're a person who lacks the ability to entertain even slightly an opinion or a thought that differs from your own. You cannot handle the heat when it's turned up. That's just the way you are wired. We see these people through life. We see them in politics. We see them in business, and we see them in sports. There's some people out there who get extremely uncomfortable in disagreement, in confrontation, in banter, when it really shouldn't be that serious. I mean, guys, it's sports. This isn't life or death. But there are some people out there that just really become uncomfortable. It's not that I'm negative or toxic, or because I'm also positive and praise when it's due and give credit when it's due. And I try to be nothing but fair. And I believe I accomplish that on a day in, day out basis. But there's people out there that, whether it be South Carolina, whether it be Auburn, whether it be Alabama, whether it be Georgia, there's a small faction out there that just, you can't question anything without, oh my God, you're negative, you're toxic, you're anti-us. If you're not pro everything, you're anti. And I mean, guys, call it for what it is. There are entities out there in the South Carolina space that they would never say an ill word about South Carolina. They would never say even a critical word, hardly. They're not doing it full time. They haven't built the following that we have. They haven't built the platform. They haven't had the success that we have. They haven't done it. Tell me why. And I believe it comes back to because people, they don't want to be told what they want to hear all the time. They want to be challenged. The fun. That's why I say the beauty is in the banter, man. And every now and then, sometimes the banter, hey, guess what? Sometimes you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Sometimes the banter, you give your honest take and honest opinion, and it backfires. I would say, I think 95% of the takes that I give are, good takes, solid takes that create conversation, banter to a reasonable degree. There's about 5% of takes that I have that just flat out miss. I've had those takes. I mean, I could make a list right now, guys. And even if I still to this day, I mean, there's some takes, guys, that I've had that people have tried to get me literally canceled over, that I still look at the take and say, I don't know how anybody even would get mad at this. That's the beauty of the internet. There's some things that you think are like really hot takes where you're like, man, that's, this is going to get people going, and it doesn't. And then there's some things that you'll post and you're like, man, this is so no brainer, like no big deal. And it goes crazy. But you live by the sword, die by the sword, man. You have to keep swinging. You have to keep talking. You have to keep showing up. You can't just have one take that people don't like and you fold. You just, that's not how you win. So, back to Ethan's point, I mean, again, about business and, I really though, Ethan, I don't go into like the show and say, well, like Jake was saying, you're not like, what hot take can I give that's going to generate clicks and views? And because when you do that, it's so easy to spot. Like you come off as you're not authentic, you're not genuine, your content's not going to pop that way. You got to be real. You got to be real. And I actually watched something today, a clip from Gary Vee talking about, somebody was asking about how do I find my niche? And I loved what he said because I've said this for a while as well. And I agree with him 110%. Your niche is being you. Your niche is being authentic, genuine to yourself. Guys, there are multiple entities that talk Gamecocks. We're all talking about the same stuff to a degree, but it's who we are as people, and it's our tones, and it's our opinions on it. It's our fingerprint that puts the spin on it that makes our content unique. You know what I mean? So anyways, man, I mean, I just approach everything like that, Ethan. I try to be, listen, the greatest compliment, or one of the greatest compliments I can receive at this point, is when you say you're not a homer, you're unbiased. Like, good. That's what I'm shooting for. I'm a South Carolina guy. I'll always be a South Carolina guy. But I have not hid the fact that I have aspirations and intentions at some point of going beyond just the South Carolina scope and talking the entire SEC and expanding my brand to a more national platform. Like, I'm not hiding behind that. That is something that I'm excited for, and I will embrace that, and I hope that you guys and my audience will embrace it. Will there be some backlash? Will there be some people that don't like it? I'm sure there will be. I know for a fact there will be. But my goal at the end of the day is not to see things from a garnet and black scope where it's just, let's pump pro USC, to the point that Jake made. I've never gotten a check from South Carolina. Quite the contrary. South Carolina has gone out of their way multiple times at nearly every turn over the years to make my life harder. What can we do to put TSUS out of business and make him go away? And so it's also kind of funny when I see those comments on social media like, why won't you go away? The school didn't even like you. My goal was never for USC to like me. My goal was to wake up every day and do something I love to do. That's it. When you really boil it down to it, my goal from the jump, what can I do? Can I turn my passions into a business where I wake up and do something I'm passionate about? I talk about something I'm passionate about, and I do something I love to do every day, where I get to fulfill my purpose and fulfill being my higher self. Am I able to do that? And every day since August 5th of 2019, I'm proud to say that I've been able to do it. Bottom line. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
John Edward.
John Edward. What is up, my friend? How are you?
Good, how are you, bro?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I appreciate you asking. What is going on?
No, I'm just actually just walked in the door a couple of minutes ago. I'm got started my early week, 1 week. Sorry, got off work early and just came home and now I'm chilling.
Very nice, my friend. Very nice.
Yeah, dude, 7 weeks tomorrow.
7 more Saturdays tomorrow and 6 more Saturdays until we get college football. Vandy and Hawaii for the SEC, and obviously there are other games as well to pay attention to. But, yeah, man, I'm super pumped.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I just actually got home last night and from my Bible study, and I went and saw all that went down between Brad Crawford and Mark Ryan. I was actually listening to what you and Jake were talking about. Like, I think it was you that said, or was it Jake that said, yeah, I know Mark wants to say Beamer's got the same record as Muschamp after 2 years, but I didn't realize Beamer's got the same record right as Spurrier after 2 years. Is that what I heard?
Yes. So I believe that is, yeah, I'm trying to think back. I believe that's correct because it was Muschamp who surpassed Spurrier or, had more wins than Spurrier after 3. I believe they were tied after 2. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Yeah, because
Okay.
I'm almost.
It's just funny.
I believe they both had 15 wins. I believe Spurrier also had 15 wins through 2 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just funny that Mark chose to use Muschamp to compare to say him being has the same record as Muschamp as used, but didn't choose to use Spurrier. Like if you're gonna use Muschamp's name, then use Spurrier's name as well when you're comparing him and Bieber's record. Like I don't know why we just got to pick Muschamp. He had to choose Muschamp's name instead of Spurrier's. Like,
right.
Anyway, I actually DM'd Brad last night. I'm like, hey, thanks for going on and quote taking on Mark and Diesel. So I actually DM'd Mark.
That was a fun conversation. That was a lot of fun to hear for sure. I was very intently tuned in.
Yeah, that was like I didn't tune in live, but I was able to go back and listen to it. So that was I DM'd Brad. I'm like, hey, thanks for doing that. And so I'm one of the people in the fan base that's kind of not a fan of Mark Ryan's, and sure a lot of people in the fan base on it. But anyway, so you're leaving. Let me ask you before I get out of here. You're leaving what, Sunday for Nashville?
Yeah, Sunday. We'll probably leave around 10 or 11 a.m. and get in town, just before dinner, something like that. So I'm looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait. So it's funny. It's funny. I don't want to be put on watch, but my route that I'm taking, I might even leave a little bit earlier because you guys know I love stadiums. My route I'm passing right through Knoxville. So may have to sneak into not that would be sneaking into, but may have to make a pit stop and check out Neyland. I've never actually seen Neyland in person, like the inside of Neyland. So
yeah, you don't have to like. So we were like, why'd you go there? So I saw one time you went to drove by Cincinnati Stadium. Like, why are you going to Cincinnati Stadium? Like, just because you're a fan of one team, cannot like other, stadiums. Look at them.
Yeah, I mean, you can appreciate a cool stadium.
Yeah, you can. Yes. I don't even know what Tennessee holds. So I know it's one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, I mean they hold 100,000. I don't know the exact number, but they're seating 100,000 in there.
Yeah, give me one sec. Neyland Stadium. I'll let you go. It's 101,915, so almost 102, almost.
Wow. Yeah, it's massive. It's massive, man. It's massive.
Yeah. Well, dude, I'll let you go, but I figured I got off work early, so I'd call in briefly. But you be safe going down to Nashville and enjoy your first time at SEC Media Days. I'm gonna try and tune into Beamer's Thursday.
Yeah, he's Thursday. Yeah, so he'll look at the schedule. He'll probably be like 1:30, something like that in the afternoon Eastern time. So, but yeah, obviously we'll be there, man. We'll keep you up to date with everything going on. So,
gotcha. Yeah. All right, dude. I'll let you go, but I figured like I said, call in because I got off a little bit early and. Like I said, you had a great time in Nashville. I know you're excited about that.
Yeah, John Everett, I appreciate it, man. Have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.
All right, see you, bro.
Yeah, man, be good. John Edward Kruger. Always appreciate him calling in. Guys, we got some questions. We're going to jump into a quick break. I see my guy Eric Reese submitted one. Madison Duncan, Luke RJ. I want to get to these for sure. Let's see. Anyways. Big Cock Club Discord is active as well. Really, really good stuff. And again, I want to keep, we didn't do and we'll do this next week, a little bit of an SEC Media Days preview. I don't know. We could do that Sunday night. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Next week's going to be a lot of fun, guys, because a lot of the content, we're doing the opponent previews, which those will take up a lot of the show because basically all of the conversations I've had with these people have been minimum 30 minutes. So, these will take up a lot of the show, but we're going to have a lot of convo about SEC Media Days, previewing it the day that was, talking South Carolina, going to be a lot of fun. So we might talk a little bit more about that, some other things. I want more of your questions, comments, calls, though, on the side, guys. We're going to jump into a quick break. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie Ho. Muscle Dougie Ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Friday, July the 14th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Thank you all so much again for the continued love and support. Been a fantastic week here on this side of things, and I think in the content world as well. Let's get back into your questions, your comments. Let's see. Eric Reese says, hypothetical. Let's say DK produces some solid production in the backfield this season and rushes for 500 to 750 yards this season. How would you guess that our season went? Eric, I'd say we had a pretty damn good season. I think that, 500 or more rushing yards, in my opinion, again, I'm trying to keep realistic expectations here. I think that, is a massive success. I think 500 or more rushing yards would be an incredible year for the Carry-On Joiner. I really do. We'll talk about this a lot more when we get into our position unit preview series. We'll talk about it a lot more. But I think that'd be a massive success. I really do. I think that'd be a massive success. So I would say if South Carolina, if he's rushing for 500 to 700 yards, I'd say Carolina's having a pretty damn good season because, in my opinion, you got the run game somewhat figured out in that scenario. There's some balance in the offense. There's some run game, right? Some sort of run game. Spider-Man 3001 said, just like how we all love America but don't agree with everything our government officials do, we all love the Gamecocks, but don't always agree with the university or other fans. Indeed. Luke RJ said, I like this show and TSUS because you interact with the fans more than others by reading our comments on the show or letting people call into the show. And a big cock on the merch. Yeah, Luke RJ, I've just always looked at it as, again, people wonder why I say we instead of I, because I do look at it as we, us. Like everything TSUS does is us. It's we. Without you guys, without love and support of those, without you guys showing love and support to TSUS, nothing we do would be possible or what we're doing would be possible. You know what I mean? And I just, from the jump, I've always wanted to create an environment where it's like, I'm not necessarily talking to my audience or to the audience. I'm talking with the audience. I've even had to, I've had to, in some scenarios, sometimes I think I ask for too much feedback or I ask the audience too much. And it's like, in a way, I am speaking to the audience, but it's us. You know what I mean? It's we. So, Luke RG, I'm just happy we have. And that's why I kept, the Q&A Power Hour. I mean, that's why I kept that because I didn't want to lose out on what made TDC special and what makes it special, which is the open-ended banter and the conversation that we have. That, to me, is what makes TDC unique, what makes it special, that it's really just wide open. I lean on you guys during the Q&A Power Hour to, present topics, conversations, questions, what have you, calls. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Anyways, guys, the conversation that really took social media by storm yesterday. Mark Ryan, Brad Crawford gets into it, but this, and he did it yesterday on the show, and I didn't think anything of it. And Mark's done it before. But comparing Shane Beamer to Will Muschamp. And I'll just say this to start off, because we had some interesting conversation in the Discord about this. Some very interesting convo in the Discord about this. That even if the records are the same, let's say that Shane Beamer goes 7-6 this year, right? Let's say he goes 7-6. And so then Shane Beamer has the same record after 3 seasons as Will Muschamp. Even if the records are the same. It's a conversation that this fan base will simply not allow. And I don't blame them. Because you look at how toxic things were in the building. How poorly things ended. I don't blame Gamecock fans for not entertaining the conversation in the slightest. But if we're going to do so, if we're going to, for whatever reason, compare Will Muschamp and Shane Beamer, here's what I'll say. And I mentioned this on social media. Are the records the same? Sure, they are. 15 wins through 2 seasons. The records are the same. But not all records and not all wins and losses are built equally. And I would argue, guys, that Shane Beamer's done more in 2 seasons in Columbia than Will Muschamp did his entire tenure. Shane Beamer beat Kentucky and Lexington, something Will Muschamp was never able to do. Shane Beamer beat Texas A&M, something Will Muschamp was never able to do. Shane Beamer beat Clemson, something Will Muschamp not only was never able to do, but the games were never even close. And so you can refer to total wins. You can even look at recruiting classes, and the classes are comparable, but context matters. Context matters. So when you talk Will Muschamp and Shane Beamer through 2 seasons, I think the better comparison is comparing Shane Beamer to Steve Spurrier through 2 seasons. I know it's not the same because Steve Spurrier was already a Hall of Famer, a legend when he got to Columbia, and Shane Beamer's a first-time coach. But that's also why it's invalid to compare Will Muschamp and Shane Beamer, because Will Muschamp was a failed SEC head coach when he came to Columbia. Shane Beamer has a blank slate. So while you can sit there and you can compare records, there are so many holes that you can poke in that. There are so many holes that you can poke in that conversation. The one thing I will say is this: hindsight is 20/20. So when it goes to, when using context, the records were not built the same. They were the same, but not built the same. When you think about vibe around the program, after 2 seasons, nobody knew how bad the culture was, or nobody even knew there was a bad culture. South Carolina in the second season of Will Muschamp was coming off 9 wins and an Outback Bowl. Vibes were sky high. Guys, I recall the preseason of 2018. The question was, is South Carolina going to challenge Georgia for the SEC East this season? That was the question mark. That was the vibe. So morale was pretty high. And so, well, I'm not going to sit here and entertain the conversation. I'll just say this. I recall a time when Will Muschamp was beloved, believe it or not, just as much as Shane Beamer. Let's jump to the
Call
lines.
from
Will from Garden Myrtle.
Will, what's going on, my guy? How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Appreciate you asking. What's up?
Can you hear me good?
I can hear you perfectly, my friend. What's going on?
All right. Just wanted to give my quick take on the Will Muschamp comparisons that drive most of us up a wall. First off, the comparison is it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you look at the record, it's the same, obviously. But going forward, does anybody in this world think that Beamer is going to fall off a cliff after this year, even if we just win 6 games? I don't think that the downslide, the last 2 years of Will Muschamp tenure at South Carolina was like a marriage that had been over for a long time, and you're cheating and she's cheating and nobody gives a shit about anything in the household. I don't think that Beamer is going to do that to us, regardless of what happens this year. Not to mention that Muschamp was 1-2 in bowl games, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully Beamer can get a bowl win this year, regardless of what the regular season record is, and he'll be off to a better start than that. But it's just maddening when you think about people constantly want to do this, because I think it's only because they know how much people dislike Muschamp in South Carolina, so being able to compare the two is a nice way to piss somebody off. But it just seems more like the trajectory is more of the Spurrier trajectory than it is the Muschamp. If I'm not mistaken, in Florida, I think Muschamp peaked in the second year. I think he might have won 11 games in the second year, and then the third year it kind of went off the cliff. And I think he did the same thing kind of in South Carolina, where he won 9 the second year, and then it kind of went down, and then went in the hole. But yeah, it drives me crazy because it's like you don't get that feeling. Like there's just so many optimistic, things around campus to be happy about. Where he's changing the culture, he's changing the program, he's changing the stadium. We got the lights, we're getting all kind of new stuff. It just feels different than when Muschamp was there. It just felt like we were always gonna in the big games too. And I know you spoke about this, but in the big games, it seems like we show up a lot. Now we have got our ass kicked a couple times on the Beamer. I'm not gonna say we haven't, but it seems like we show up better in those big games. Whereas Muschamp's teams just seem to fall flat whenever we played anybody good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'll say this, Will, to your point. I mean, again, context it has to matter in a conversation like this. I mean, you look at last year, has South Carolina benefited from turnovers and special teams? And sure, but I mean, back-to-back wins over top 10 teams. Those were not fluke wins. Those were wins. I mean, Carolina whooped Tennessee's ass, and they could have beaten Clemson by 2 touchdowns. Had some things worked out their way, some bad calls, bad breaks, whatever. I look at Will Muschamp's second year. Man, it was as smoke and mirrors gets. I mean, Michigan turned the ball over 5 times in the bowl game for you to win that game, right? Like, there was a lot of that in that season. There was a lot of that. So, again, it's just not as simple as, well, let's just compare records and end it at that, right? It's not as simple as that. It's just not. I will say this, though, Will, as you called in, the point that I was making. Hindsight's 2020. So, like, Will Muschamp is now a dirty word in Columbia. I get that. And Will Muschamp is hated. I mean, it's the cool thing to hate Will Muschamp. But, dude, I'm telling you, I recall a time not so long ago when Will Muschamp, he wasn't just liked, Will. He was beloved. He was beloved by Gamecock fans. I mean, when I went on that Fire Muschamp tirade after the UNC game, a lot of people were like, hell yeah, Fire Muschamp. A lot of people wanted to kick my ass. Like a lot of – dude, I mean, it was crazy. A lot of people disagreed. A lot of people. So, and after the second year, people loved Coach Boom, his second opportunity. Like, he learned from Florida. Look at us. Like, I mean, dude, there were people with Muschamp. That they told me, they were like, Chris, I 2020 Texas A&M, I finally got on the Fire Muschamp wagon with you. People held out that long, dude. Will Muschamp got every chance and then some from this fan base. So don't tell me that Will Muschamp was just hate. Like, dude, Gamecock fans loved that dude. So, I guess that's a conversation more so differing in the sense of like, right now, I mean, Shane Beamer can do no wrong right now. Can it turn though? Yeah, because no coach is immune to the effects of losing. No coach can combat that. No coach. I don't give a damn how happy you are and joyful, and none of that matters if you don't win.
Yeah, I'll add this to that. I feel like Shane Beamer's coaching job in year one might have been one of the best coaching jobs we've ever had in a single season. When you think about doing more with less, when you think about winning games with 4 different starting quarterbacks, with all of the injuries and the turnover, it seemed like Muschamp, let's be honest, Muschamp had some real.
Oh, okay. We just lost Will from Dirty Myrtle, but I think he was going into comparing the year ones. I mean, again, guys, it's the middle of July. That's why we're even having this conversation, because we need football back, right? Obviously. But it is interesting how over the last, 24 hours or so, it's really taken Gamecock social media by storm. But I just, as I said before, man, like, if we're just solely comparing the first 2 years, like, I know the win total is the same, but again, that's where the combo stops. That's where the combo stops. Let's jump to the phone lines.
Call from
Nancy's Nook.
To accept.
Beautiful. Thank you for the prank call there. Another one. Here we go. Let's see.
Call from
Dolphin.
Here we go. Dalton, what's going on? I'm just relieved to hear that you're not Nancy's Nook who just tried to call into the show. What's up?
How's it going?
I'm doing well, man.
How's it
That was the
going?
call. That was the call right before you. I don't know if you heard that or not, but yeah. So we got some people playing some tricks today on this Friday.
Well, yeah, I wanted to call in and sort of get your opinion, get your take on this whole Tennessee situation and what it means for the NCAA as a whole. Because in my view, I mean, this sort of punishment sort of cements like the NCAA as basically being a toothless organization with no power, basically meaningless in the realm of college athletics, other than the fact that they, organize the college baseball tournament and they organize the college basketball tournament.
I mean, yeah, Dalton, I would say this, I know you're someone that's not pleased with the end result. Obviously, no postseason ban. And, just speaking on the punishment, I do think that the impact is greater than we realize in recruiting. The postseason ban thing, I'll just say this, and I mentioned it earlier. What's tough about it is, do they probably deserve a postseason ban for everything that happened? I mean, dude, over like 200 mishaps or mistakes they made or what have you. Do they probably deserve it? Yeah, but I hate punishing people who had nothing to do with it. I hate that. I do. I hate that. I hate punishing players, coaches that they had nothing to do with it. So how do you punish the school?
The fact of the matter is,
yeah, go ahead.
The fact of the matter, in my view, is that somebody's got to get punished. I mean, Baylor did similar things to what Tennessee did. I'm sure Tennessee fans will say, "Oh, well, Baylor was worse" or whatever. But you've never seen the NCAA in the past go, "Oh, well, this coaching staff had nothing to do with it and they cooperated. So, we're going to lighten the punishment, or we're not going to do a postseason ban, or we're not going to do this." That would be like me committing a bank robbery, like taking all the money I robbed from the bank, burying it, and then a month later, like going to the police and saying, "I just wanted to let you know I robbed the bank. If I show you where all the money is, like, don't punish me as much." Like it's not supposed to work like that. You're just showing everybody within the realm of college athletics they can basically commit whatever recruiting violations they want to and get away with it. I mean, Tennessee has already been accused of recruiting violations with their, freshman quarterback Nico Slapdick or whatever, the guy they paid $8 million for. Their claims that they committed violations in that recruiting process. So ultimately, this isn't going to stop unless you bring the hammer down, and they did not bring the hammer down today, which is disappointing.
And I hear you from that perspective. I do. I hear you from that perspective. And I say this, I mean, I guess, would you expect anything less from the NCAA? I'll just put it that way. I mean, you can't count on the NCAA for anything. And, is there some preferential treatment? I mean, sure. Absolutely. I mean, there's not one sole like method of operation where, okay, if you have this many, things against you, then we're going to do this punishment. I mean, I'm sure when they sat down and they looked at it and they said, okay, here's everything that happened. Previous staff, here's what we could do. Here's how we could punish them. But, Tennessee's a brand in college football. And you know what? Brands are good for our business. And the last thing we want to do is keep one of those brands out of the postseason. I mean, I know you don't like it. I don't like it either, but that's it. I think that's a lot of probably what it came down to.
I mean, the fact of the matter, though, is, as most people have been saying, if a school like Oklahoma State, or let's go with like Arkansas, even South Carolina, did something like this, and, even if they had cooperated, I guarantee you they'd be getting more than this slap on the wrist that they're getting. Now, the scholarship restriction and the recruiting restrictions, like, those are probably going to hurt Tennessee somewhat. but not nearly as bad as what a postseason ban would do. A postseason ban would take the air out of this program, would deflate them, which is what I wanted to see. And it would essentially, make any program, no matter how prevalent they are, how big of a band or big of a brand they are, think twice about, committing NCAA violations, because at this point you're already in a realm of the wild west. I mean, the NCAA programs already think that the NCAA has no power to, enforce any kind of restrictions on what they're doing. So if you don't make an example, you're just gonna feed into that narrative or that opinion of most college programs, and it seems like they're okay with it, or they don't really, that they don't understand the consequences of what this means going forward.
Indeed, Dalton. Indeed. Listen, I mean, I think you're making all valid points, my guy. I think you're making all valid points, but the NCAA has spoken, and just is what it is. So, I mean, I guess from the Gamecock perspective, the only thing that you can hope is that the punishments on the recruiting side hurt them in the future, and maybe slow down what they're trying to build. So, I don't know, man. I don't know what else there really is to do or say other than that. And I mean, yeah. So what's done is done, I guess. What's
fuck
done is
Tennessee. Fuck the NCAA. They're all bitches. They can suck it.
I love it. Dalton, well said.
That's my opinion.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Poetic.
All right. You have a good one.
All right, Dalton. Take care, brother. Great to hear from you. Great stuff from Dalton. Can you tell he's Dalton the Vol hater? Look at this. It says Dalton the Vol hater, doesn't it? Living up to his name. Love that. Taylor Made says punishments on the recruiting side. They're at 2 recruiting losses per year. Yet something. I thought it was 5, Taylor. I thought it was 28 over a 5-year period. Scholarships. Am I wrong? Thought it was 5. 2 is much less significant. You are right. Madison Duncan says, I just saw a post from Florida Gators Swamp News saying they will win 10 games and 2 are a toss-up. Georgia and LSU the toss-ups. If I laugh any harder, I'm going to throw up. I have not seen that. That's quite a bold take. Quite a bold take. Quite a bold take. And I'll tell you this, Taylor May, the 28 that I saw, that came from Tennessee's 24/7 website. So unless I don't know, maybe I looked at the wrong thing. Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus had this to say, quote, he has my vote as the receiver not getting talked about enough right now heading into the season. That about Juice Wells. I would agree. I don't know that Juice Wells is getting quite the love and the hype that maybe he deserves. TaylorMade says they've already self-sanctioned 18 by end of year, 10 more to go, 2 per year. Oh, I didn't know. Okay, I didn't know that. I just saw 28 on their website. Wow, okay. That's not nearly as much then. Not nearly as much. Not nearly as much. Here we go. This will be funny.
Call from Tigerton Graphics.
I love it. You got to think about the effort it takes to find these businesses and go to like a prank call thing and have a business number call this number. I don't know. I guess there's a site that makes it easy to do that. I have no idea. Either way, keep it coming. 843-790-3372. I wish the people that were doing that would call in themselves. Let's have the convo. That's what I've always wondered is like, genuinely, I've always wondered this. The people who hate me so much and spread so much of what they spread on social media, I mean, why not call and put it on the airwaves? Like if you feel it needs to be said to such a degree, just call the number. It's wide open. Call the number. Say what you have to say. Say what you have to say. I mean, why not? It's here. I'd respect you a lot more if you did that. Actually, no, I wouldn't. You're a slapdick. Anyways, okay. Let's jump into one final break, guys. On the side, we'll take your questions, comments, calls, and we'll close out the show here on this Friday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, I'm back here. Final 10 minutes or so here in the Daily Crow, taking your questions, comments, calls. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Madison Duncan asks, just noticed the chair. Is it comfy? It is. It is, Madison. I love this chair. Yeah, the chair is incredible, dude. The chair is awesome. Timmy says, what happened to the seafood commercial? So, funny story, Timmy, about the seafood people. So, Carolina Seafood Market, they hit me up. Hey, love your show. I'm a Gamecock. Want to run an ad through Father's Day. Put the partnership on pause and then come back during the football season. Said, cool, whatever. Whatever, that's fine. So we run the ad, whatever. And I hit up the owner. He's like, yeah, man, I'm actually, I'm out of the country right now. Hit you up when I get back. He hits me up like 2 weeks later. Says, oh, yeah, hey, I'm back from being out of the country. I sold the business. Sold the business. Just like that. Just sold the business just like that and said, yeah, I gave your information to the new owner. You're the man. Let's link up at a Carolina game, whatever. So I don't know, guys. I don't know about the seafood stuff. That was it happens, though. I mean, it happens. So it happens every now and then. Some, people, you get business partners, they fall off, things happen, businesses change. I mean, what's funny, guys? I just found this out a couple of days ago. I moved recently, as you all obviously know, and I was looking for a moving company to help out. And you might recall, Upstate Movers Group used to be one of our business partners, like all through COVID, like immediately after COVID. Like they were a big-time business partner. And for about a year, they were my business partner. And so I'm like, hey, I'll hit him up, right? He's probably still out there, whatever. And I hit him up, and lo and behold, he's not even in business anymore. Just folded up shop. No longer a moving company. So, I mean, guys, you just never know. It's hard out here, man. I mean, there's a lot of small businesses that do not make it. You know what I mean? So we're fortunate. I'm grateful that I've been able to make it and continue and grow and thrive. And, very, very grateful for that. So, but yeah, it's just, what happens, man. And over the next couple of weeks, there will be very much so an increase in the interest in people partnering up with the Spurs Up show, which is normal. It's natural, guys, because football moves the needle. Like everybody wants to be a business partner during football season. It just makes sense. Everybody does. So it's cool. It's fun. And, you learn as an entrepreneur, like when you make your money and, when you generate the most revenue and stuff like that. So Brewer Nation says, Chris stays shutting down business while standing on business. I guess so, Brewer Nation. I don't know. I guess so, my guy. I guess so. Anyways, 843-790-3377, guys. Final couple of minutes in our season preview series is officially in the books, guys. We talked offense, defense, special teams all week long. Make sure you check out the podcast in case you missed anything. iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, beginning Sunday, guys, because, of course, again, TDC is going to be a lot different because we'll be in Nashville, Tennessee for SEC Media Day. So we'll go live Sunday through Wednesday and then Friday. So Sunday through Wednesday will be at night. Friday will be right here, normal time. No show Thursday because we're traveling. But we will begin next week our opponent preview series. You guys might recall the SEC team previews where I just jumped on with someone from the other team, other side, and got the full rundown of their team and outlook for their season, all that good stuff. The opponent preview series is everyone on South Carolina's schedule. So, for example, right after TDC today at 3 o'clock, I'm jumping on with AJ of Tar Heel Illustrated, which is a Rivals website. We're going to talk all things UNC, the 2022 season, their head coach, Mac Brown, outlook for this fall for offense, defense, special teams, the overall outlook. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit about South Carolina, North Carolina in that season opener. So it's a lot of fun, guys. I love doing it because we get to learn more about the teams on the schedule and their outlooks and what they have going on. And I enjoy it. You know, I enjoy it greatly. It's a ton of fun, and looking forward to getting that going. So those will air every day. So Sunday night will be UNC. Monday will be Furman. Tuesday, Georgia. Wednesday, Mississippi State. And then Friday will be Tennessee. And then the following week, we'll go Florida. We'll go, Mizzou, A&M, Jacksonville State, Vandy, Kentucky, Clemson. So that'll happen over the next 2.5 weeks or so. And then after that, we get into our position unit preview series. Very, very excited for that, guys. Looking forward to it. Going to be a lot of fun. Brewer Nation says, Chris, go enjoy next week. I most certainly will. I most certainly will. Brewer Nation, I absolutely will. I mean, I was talking about this earlier. You know, obviously the opportunity with content at SEC Media Days is something I'm going to take advantage of. I mean, the content is going to be crazy, bleeding out the eyeballs. It's going to be a blast. But Brewer Nation, at the same time, to your point, I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to soak it all in, enjoy the moment, enjoy being there, and not lose sight of how cool it is and how special it is, the fact that we're at SEC Media Days. I for sure I'm going to do that. So, Brewer Nation, I appreciate you. Madison says, will you do a 30-second Facebook Live check-in from the drive or places, people you visit? Madison, I will most certainly be posting content. I don't know that I'll do like a 30-second live necessarily. Maybe, Madison, I don't know if you follow us on Instagram. Instagram Live would be good for something like that. Instagram Live would be really good for something like that. So, maybe so. I'll be posting, Madison, a ton of video, photos, all that good stuff. But we'll probably save the live stuff for the Daily Crow at nighttime, if you will. So, anyways, Jeff Gullich says we need a sim game countdown in the top left corner. Yeah, hey, Jeff, it literally gets going next weekend, starting Sunday night, South Carolina, UNC on the simulation. It's going to be a ton of fun. John Ebert says, enjoy Nashville. Thank you so much, John Ebert. I appreciate it. Robbie Davis says, have a great weekend. Safe travels. Robbie Davis, you as well. Guys, that being said, we're going to go ahead and end it now. Again, I've got that conversation. Hold on. Brewer Nation says, are you going to ask a question to anyone? Brewer Nation, I'm trying to ask a question to everyone. Obviously, Brewer Nation, one of the most exciting things for me is I continue to get to grow not just the TSUS brand, but my personal brand. And so, yes, I will be in the big room for all of the coaches' conversations. And, I'm going to do my very best to ask questions and, again, get my name out there and conversate with these coaches. And, if I don't get a question in, it's fine. It's no big deal because I'm sure they've got their local media that want to ask questions and need to ask questions. But if I can, most certainly, that's Brewer Nation. That's absolutely the plan. I mean, you can look at SEC Media Days this way. As awesome as the content side is, you can think of this, at least the way I'm viewing it, as like the biggest, baddest networking event that you can go to in this space. Dude, everybody will be there. All these national guys, big-time content dudes, podcast, radio, whatever. Everybody will be there. You know what I mean? So, I'm looking forward to it, man. Going to be a lot of fun in Brewer Nation. I'm going to try to ask questions, even to Coach Shane Beamer. So that might be kind of interesting. I don't know. We all know how Steve Fink and company feel about yours truly. And, we'll just kind of see what happens, if you will. We'll see what happens. But, listen, I think it'll be a great week. And if I do get to ask Coach Beamer a question, it'll be about football and sticking with ball and learning about his team and learning about this season. And, we'll go from there. So, anyways, guys, hey, let's go ahead and get out of here. Again, I got to send over the Zoom link to our guy, AJ, over at why can I not say this? Tar Heel Illustrated. Over at Tar Heel Illustrated, the Rivals affiliate for UNC. Timmy says they probably won't let you. I mean, you know what? Listen, if they don't, they don't. It's totally fine. I'm there. We won. We're good. Anyways, guys, we're going to go and get out of here, wrap it up. It is 3:00. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank y'all so much for the love, the support. It means the world, man. The next time you hear from yours truly in the Daily Crow, we'll be in Nashville. SEC Media Days, man. I'm giddy about it. Can't wait. The content's going to be incredible. Hey, thank y'all so much, guys. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Truly, the love, the support. Subscribe on YouTube. Check out the podcast. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate you all tuning in. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you all on Sunday night from SEC Media.